Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to open the 25th meeting of the Milton Planning Board, fiscal year 2020. And I'd like to announce that in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, this meeting of the Milton Planning Board is being held remotely, utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software. The login and call-in information is included on the agenda and as is seen on the screen now under room, where it's the meeting ID number and then the password number. So this meeting is being televised live via Milton Access TV, and it will be available on their website on demand. Real-time public comment can be made tonight via the audio feature of this platform, whether joining by computer, mobile device, or phone. And Town Planner Bill Clark and I will be controlling the mute feature until I ask for public comment at the appropriate times, and board members will not be muted. So with that, I am Cheryl Tugayas, the chair, and Kathleen O'Donnell, if you would introduce yourself.
Kathleen O'Donnell, member.
And April.
April Anderson, member.
And Denny.
Denny Swinson, secretary.
And Bill.
Bill Clark, planning director.
And Julia is muted, sorry.
Julia
unmuted.
Getman, administrative clerk, is here.
Okay, and is Allison with us?
If she's not, she will be shortly.
Okay, and Allison Quinn, assistant town planner, will be joining us. Okay, we have a full agenda this evening. And so we are going to move to our public hearings first. So we will come back to administrative items after we do our public hearings. And our first public hearing is at 7:05, which I believe is now. First of all, maybe what I'll do is I'll note that we will take public comment with each agenda item rather than in advance. But if there is, so Bill, can you unmute everyone? But if there's someone who would like to speak to us on a topic that is not on our agenda tonight, I will give opportunity to do that now under citizens speak. So if you would like to speak, as soon as Bill gets done unmuting everyone in a moment, I'll ask for you to let us know that you would like to do so. So just one more minute. Okay, is there anyone who's with us who would like to speak to us on a matter not on the agenda tonight? Okay, so seeing none, Bill, if you can mute everyone except the board members and Ned Corcoran, who will start us off on the site plan approval, the continuation of the public hearing, which was continued from May 14th. Just site plan approval for 919 Blue Hill Avenue, Little Sprouts. So what I'd like to do with this tonight is to allow for this presentation to take in public comment and questions, and then for planning board members to ask questions or request additional information. But due to how many items we have on the agenda, I'd like to then continue this hearing until our next meeting. And with that also, we would take up our deliberations at that meeting or a later one. Okay, so with that, Ned, I believe you have a presentation, and Bill, you'll call that up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The good news is that in the last 2 weeks, the governor released some of the restrictions, so I was able to get a haircut and did not have to look at my man bun for purposes of this presentation. We were last before you on the start of site plan approval in February 13, had a site walk on February 22, and then the world changed as we know it. We have spent the last number of months trying to arrive at a site plan that would work for abutters, for the owner, for the Little Sprouts, the tenant, and unfortunately, we're not able to arrive at agreement with some of the abutters regarding sort of the option 2 uses which would have required relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals relative to setback. And so we're proceeding as under the as of right plan that we've submitted now, which is the amended site plan. Bill, do you have, here we go. So I'm here with a number of folks from the Little Sprouts team, Kevin Brady, who you met before, Alyssa Robinson and Christine Hanley, who are development and management folks with Little Sprouts. Giles Ham with Vanessa Associates is the new traffic engineer. He and I will each make presentations. Others, including Jesse Johnson, Zach Poisson from Bowler, David Silverman, Nathan Benuto from Silverman Trikowski Associates are available as well to answer questions. But Giles and I will carry most of the laboring ore. So next slide, Bill. So just to reorient people, this is the site. It's the former, originally a public school owned by the town of Milton, sold by the town in the 1950s, operated by several owners as a combination of nursery, residence, and most recently by Tom Coulter Landscaping. That you see his dwelling with the nursery and his large garage to the rear of the property. Louisville Avenue is running sort of on the lower left-hand corner, and then Atherton Street is right in the middle of the photo with the town's fire station in the front right. Next. So the amended site plan, which has been filed, uses Atherton Street as the primary access and egress location. It is essentially what we had shown previously as sort of option one, with building and the site reimagined to fit within the zoning, and really needed to flip the site because the parking lot was where the building is, and the building as we had proposed it was roughly where the parking lot is. So we have new stormwater detention and whatnot. What we've done, and in particular in response to questions and concerns about parking volumes, traffic, and the like, is that we've designed a site that has an entry from Atherton Street on the upper side on the slide, an entry in off of Atherton Street with a counterclockwise circulation. There is a parking field at the site. There's a driveway that enters in, comes along the westerly, the upper side, will swing around in front of parking spaces in front of the building and back around. There's an egress both to Atherton Street on the right-hand side and a separate egress for folks exiting southbound onto Blue Hill Avenue with a right turn only egress at that point. Inside the front yard area, just within Atherton Street, is a turnaround. And so what we've done, we've got 27 parking spaces on the site. We have created additional what we call stacking capacity or stacking lanes for 3 vehicles on the right-hand side as you enter, and 4 vehicles on the exit side, on the easterly side of the property, with specific instructions being given to parents for pickup and drop-off that if there is not a space available while they enter, they can wait within the stacking area for a space to free up, and then enter into, then proceed to a parking space. There is a turnaround, as I said, on the Atherton Street end of the property that is a pervious paver, but allow people to come back, to remain inside the site for purposes of circulating, if they're circulating to find additional parking. And we think that's significant because we have obviously, we have capacity for people entering the site to either find a parking space or to stack until they can find a parking space. And then we have egress being split into two directions. One, folks heading northbound on Blue Hill Avenue or east and west on Atherton and Bradley Road to come up to the light at Atherton Street, and folks heading southbound on Blue Hill Avenue to use the separate egress lane for that purpose. Bill, next one. The next set of slides I'll run through fairly quickly. They deal with the other components of site plan. And Giles Ham, as I said, is a more particular set of slides to talk more in depth about traffic on the site. Grading and drainage. There is a large underground detention system right in the middle of the parking field with all storm drains from the building and storm drains from the parking area collecting into that underground detention system so that we detain stormwater on site. If you see, Bill, in there are the two sort of islands within the parking area. Between those, just to the right of that, and in between those two, there's a rectangular system that's shown for the underground detention, and those hatched lines, those dark hatched lines, represent the underground storm lines that connect from storm catch basins into that system. Next slide is a utility plan, basically showing that we'll be connecting to sewer within Atherton Street and water and electric within Blue Hill Avenue. There's adequate capacity for utilities on the site. Next slide, Bill. Erosion control plan, we've got staked silt fence that will be spread around the site to catch any erosion during the construction activities taking place. The property will be set so that the low point of the property is really within the parking area itself. Next, the lighting plan, and the following two slides show some cut sheets, but there are two double lights, one on each of the islands for the parking area. There's another one just off the corner of the building. It's a single light there. Those are represented by the first two cut sheets, and then a set of lights that are attached to the building themselves. The lighting plan shows, it's difficult to see in this iteration, but it shows that all of the light is captured on the site. There's no light spillover, and because the Little Sprouts is a 5-day-a-week daytime use, so 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., there's no reason for lighting to be on beyond 1 hour after the facility closes on a daily basis, and so lights, except for emergency lights, will be set to go off after 7 o'clock at night. The next two slides show these are the two cut sheets for the first is the cut sheets for the parking lot. That is the double light if it's in the islands. The other is for the single light by the corner of the building, and then the next two are lights that would be attached to the building themselves. Next, landscaping plan. We've got a fairly robust landscaping plan, landscaping within the two islands, landscaping along the westerly, significant landscaping along the westerly boundary, and landscaping along the Blue Hill Avenue side. There is, behind the building, a play area for children that will be fenced from abutting properties. Next, Bill. We did a vehicle study analysis to show that the town's fire truck and a dumpster truck, garbage truck, have room to maneuver within the site safely within the site, and that's what's shown in each of these two side-by-side studies. Next. These are front and rear renderings, the front facing into the parking lot, the rear facing the building. There's a two-story building, approximately 25 feet in height, 12 classrooms to handle up to 120 children, laid out on 2 floors. Next. This is a look into the property from the corner of Atherton Street and Blue Hill Avenue on the left-hand side. There would be grassed area along the frontage. You can see the landscape treatments within the island and the cutout for the turnaround within the site. And that's the building as it looks at the far end of the parking lot. On the left-hand side, sort of behind the sign, is the area where people will be able to stack while they wait for parking spaces to open. Next. And then the Atherton Street entry, you can see the parking stacking on the right for 3 vehicles waiting for parking with the building to the rear, and then 2 further, more close-up looks of the building from areas within the parking lot. Next, Bill. And next. So next, Bill. So we know that one of the concerns, well, a significant concern, obviously, is ability to park and handle the volume of activity that comes to the site on a daily basis. You know, there are 20, I think there are 26 employees. We show 27 spaces. The employees will be staggered in terms of shifts when they come, because we open at 6, closes at 6 or 6:30. There will be numbers coming in at different times, working essentially 8-hour shifts. And the other concern we heard was, well, Little Sprouts generally has a number of events per year, perhaps a graduation, some other community events, when they invite people in. These are carefully coordinated by the school administration with review and approval by the regional director to make sure they're well organized and that we are accounting for parking and other things. Next slide, Bill. Examples, some of which happen at the school, some of which happen in other places. They might have a family paint night, a breakfast go-to, summer luau, movie night, or potluck dinner. So some events might occur in the evening. Most events happen during the day. There are also occasional events that take place off-site, like a Saturday apple picking trip or some other thing. And next slide, Bill. In some of the schools, you know, they plan things out. But one of the things we're doing here, we're fortunate that a little over a mile to our south is a large free public park and ride lot on Blue Hill Avenue, right essentially across from the Blue Hill ski area. That site will become an important location for this Little Sprouts. All special event parking will be using that parking lot with shuttle to shuttle all parents and other visitors to and from the site for any special events. We also will be using that shuttle for times when we need space for teachers perhaps to park and carpool together. So paying very careful attention to how the site is working. We plan to utilize that park and ride significantly. We have a handout I provided, we posted to the website. That is a parent drop-off and pick-up set of procedures to all ensure that all children are safe, dropped off and picked up in a safe manner. Clear instructions that they are not to park within the stacking areas, but they're to wait for cars to open. U-turn within the property appropriately. And a special note, because we've heard this, that there's some concern that occasionally someone might cross from Bradley Road through the fire station parking lot into this site. There's a special note here that under no circumstances may our visitors cross through that fire station. We'll be paying fairly careful attention, developing a relationship with the folks at the firehouse to make sure that if there's anything that's happening like that we nip it in the bud immediately. But there's clear direction within this handout that they're not to do that, and that'll be explained to every parent before they come in. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Giles, who's got another set of slides to talk particularly about traffic to and from the site.
Thank you, Ned. Good evening. For the record, my name is Giles Ham, and I'm a managing partner at Vanessa & Associates. And we were retained by the project team with respect to our local knowledge, expertise on traffic safety, traffic management plans, parking, and impact of daycare facilities. I have visited the site on several occasions, and quite frankly, there's a wealth of data out there from existing studies with regard to traffic in the area. So next slide, please. So these two graphics on the left and right are really out of the 2018 Boston MPO Route 138 corridor plan. And so within that study, there's a wealth of traffic, speed, and safety data within the corridor, and specifically the Blue Hill Avenue, Atherton Street intersection. So on the left, you see those are traffic volumes that were done in 2018, March of 2018, and they're just peak hour data. In the parentheses is the PM peak hour data. And just to give you a couple numbers, so on Atherton Street, coming out in either the morning or evening, there's less than 10 cars that come out of there today, and I think that makes sense to everybody. On Bradley Road, there's less than 60 vehicles during the peak hour that come out of Bradley Road onto Route 138 or across the street. Blue Hill Ave is a fairly busy intersection, busy roadway. It accommodates about 1,000 vehicles in total, in both directions total, during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak hour. And within the study, the peak hours are from 7:30 to 8:30 and from 3 to 4, a little earlier than we typically have. Those are the peak hours that were identified within that study. So on the right, the MPO study researched 5 years of accident data along the corridor and at this particular intersection. Within that 5-year period, there were 17 accidents, or 3.4 accidents per year. I would say the majority, like 10 of those 17 accidents, were actually rear-end accidents, which is what you would expect at a signalized location. When we look at the accident rate at this intersection, the signalized intersection, compared to the state averages, the rate here is actually less than your average signalized intersection within the state. Next slide, please. So they also rated the intersection. I think you've heard this before, but a level of service analysis. So on the left, we have weekday morning, and on the right, you have weekday evening peak hour. And their analysis shows, and you look at the circle in the middle of the circle, level of service B in the morning peak hour with an average delay of 17 seconds. And in the evening peak hour, a level of service B as well with an average delay of 11 seconds. So quite frankly, the intersection operates very well under current conditions. So in summary, based upon the MPO report, you have an intersection that operates very well today, and it operates also very safely relative to the state averages. Next slide, please. Our understanding is there is a plan to renovate the fire station, and within those plans, our understanding is that emergency vehicle access will exit from Bradley Street, and there'll be a system called an Opticon system where when there's an emergency egress that's happening, the fire station will trigger the signal and they'll get a green indication from Bradley Street so they can exit quickly and efficiently. And quite frankly, our project will not change those operations at all. So they'll maintain to be, the best. What you want to have is really an Opticon system with quick access onto Blue Hill Avenue. Next slide, please. With respect to traffic generation, I think you've seen this before, but this is your standard ITE traffic generation projections based upon the number of students, which was 124 students. So it's about 490 daily trips, and half would come in over the course of the day and half out. So 245 in and 245 out over the course of a full day, and about 90 peak hour trips, just broken up between entering and exiting traffic. And again, that's based upon industry standards. Next slide, please. Let's go one more slide. These are kind of repetitive. Oh, no, go back. Okay, go back to the other side. I'm sorry. So this is, I think, as Ned had talked about, it's a nice, really clear, concise, counterclockwise traffic flow, one-way traffic flow that works quite well. We have a right turn only driveway onto Blue Avenue southbound. Only right turns out, no left turns in, no left turns out. As well as I think Ned talked about the turnaround area. I thought we had a slide with all the signage, but we have a series of signs that would go with this plan in terms of stop signs and stop bars. There'd be do not enter signs facing Blue Hill Avenue from the right turn exit driveway, as well as no left turn sign there. So there's a series of signs that are just standard federal highway signs that would be on site to support the proper and safe flow within the site.
Bill, I thought I had submitted for an update of this presentation with that additional slide. If not, you can update it. There it is.
There you go. There you go. So those are the signs I was talking about: stop signs, stop bar, do not enter signs, no left turn signs, and that's what we typically do. We put the traffic control signs that you would expect on roadways within the site to support the safe and proper traffic flow. I would tell you that whenever we develop a site that's near a signal, it's really preferable to have the major movement access through the traffic signal, because that's where traffic is controlled. That's the safest way to enter and exit a site like this. In addition, again, typically we would have that right turn out only driveway so that movements don't have to go through the signal, and that's a relatively easy movement to make that turn. But not left turns either in or out at that location, at the unsignalized location. So next slide, let's see how the order's going. So in terms of parking, really Ned really touched base on this, but we have 27 parking spaces. We have 7 vehicles in waiting lanes for a total of on-site capacity of 34 vehicles. This exceeds the zoning requirement from the town. We've also looked at parking requirements from the industry standards, which is the ITE parking generation manual, as well as some comparable sites from Little Sprouts, and we feel there's adequate parking provided on this site as proposed. So next slide, please. So we've really made just a number of recommendations that we want to make clear. So the project access, there'll be a driveway onto Atherton Street, which will have a 12-foot entering lane and a 12-foot exiting lane, and it'll be controlled by a stop sign and a stop bar. The right turn lane onto Blue Hill Avenue, similar stop control, stop bar, a no left turn sign facing the exiting traffic, and then do not enter signs facing Blue Hill Avenue to support that it's an exit only. Next slide, please. So I think when it comes to a use such as a daycare use, really the most important part of the plan is really a traffic management plan, and I think that Little Sprouts has many facilities, so they're well versed in how to manage the traffic. But essentially, you stagger the drop off and pickup times, so there's not a large peak, and that's typical with all facilities like this. The teacher schedules are also staggered, where they start early in the morning and they ramp up and they peak a midday time. In terms of parents, there's not a queuing area on site, so the parents are required to park their vehicle, and then they walk their children to and from the classrooms, and that's the way these operations operate. At the beginning for a new parent, they're going to give an information package that lets them know about these procedures, so it's very clear what's expected of the parents as they enter the parking lot and the facility. And certainly the staff will monitor compliance of these procedures throughout the day. I think Ned alluded to this a little bit, but certainly the project will consider using the Route 138 park and ride facility, and that's really for two reasons. So certainly for special events, they'll be using the shuttle service with parking down there, and also during peak times, it's possible that we may have staff park there and carpool to the facility to reduce the parking demand and traffic on site. Typical with a lot of projects that we work on, we recommend a post-development monitoring study, such that after we're up and running, after things kind of normalize at the daycare, we would do driveway counts to count the morning and afternoon traffic that enters and exits both driveways. We would also do a parking study over the course of a day. We would show how the parking accumulates over the course of the day and show that we have adequate parking. And that would be in a relatively short report that we would submit to the town for their review. And it's a good way of just documenting what happens and just to show how things work. So in summary, there's a lot of information that's out there that we've collected with the corridor study, and we feel that the plan as proposed really meets industry standards and will provide safe operations with really a minimal impact to the area. So that concludes my presentation.
So Ned, did you have anyone else who's providing a presentation?
No.
Okay.
So we'll leave it open to the board for how you want to receive comments, ask questions.
Okay, so I'm seeing that we have 46 participants. So I think the way I'd like to handle it is I'm going to call on each board member to see if they have specific questions to ask, and then we'll go to public comment. So Kathleen, do you have any questions at the moment?
I was wondering about the time period for sort of setting up a review of the traffic movement as the traffic engineer has suggested. Is that sort of like 6 months after the operation starts? Because I think we would probably put that in.
I think we're suggesting 3 months.
Okay.
And then we would return to the board and present to the board those findings, and whatever recommendations off of that would need to be implemented, we'd implement.
Okay.
So and just to clarify, so the traffic counts, I would suggest you're going to do a 7 to 9 in the morning count, a 3 to 6 in the afternoon count, and then a 10 to 12 hour parking accumulation study over the course of the day.
Okay.
Any other questions, Kathleen, at the moment?
Not for Ned, no.
Okay. And did you have one for any other member of their team?
Okay, so I did have one other question.
Okay.
Have you talked to the Moody's about what kind of fencing or whatever you would be putting around the playground that they would be then looking at?
We haven't. We know that they're quite elderly. I think Mr. Moody,
Yeah.
they're in their 90s. They've owned that property. They've owned their lot since the 50s.
Yeah.
In fact, they owned their property before the town sold it in 1953. So I think Mr. Moody, I understand that Mr. Moody may be in a nursing home, and I don't know about Mrs., but, you know, they've been, we have not engaged them particularly in a conversation.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, April?
Yes. So 2 questions, Ned. One is our prior iterations of the project were a single story. And from what I recall from those presentations, that was a safety concern rather than doing the as of right 2-story building. So I'm wondering if you can address that. And then the second issue I have is, let's see, on March 30th, I think this was at my request from the prior meeting that we discussed this project. John Thompson, our town engineer, sent us an email saying that he did not support entrance and egress on Atherton for traffic issues. The fire chief responded and said the same. So I'm wondering if you can tell us if you've seen those emails and what your response to that is.
Let me answer that one first, and I think I might ask David Silverman to answer the access and egress issues from the building itself. So I did see that, and we, in the course of the preparation of site plans over time, had meetings with Jack Grant, John Thompson, and others, and you know, we were focused on listening to their concerns and listening and understanding what we believe to be the concerns of direct abutters regarding the proximity of the building to the westerly abutter property line, the southerly abutter property line, and access and egress. Unfortunately, we're not able to reach consensus with some of the abutters regarding that option 2 use. And so we can't bring traffic in and out of Blue Hill Avenue to feed the site. It has to come in, at least entry has to come in off of Atherton Street, and exit has to, we can split the exit from northbound and southbound using both Atherton Street and Blue Hill Avenue. I think given that that's the outcome of the process that we've arrived at, we've done the best we can to take it to develop a site plan that is as responsive as possible. One of the comments, John's comments, was dealt with this notion of some vehicles coming through the fire station driveway. We made a very clear, specific item in the parent's package that will say, no, under no circumstances will you come through. I think from Giles, as Giles explained, the volumes with the timing of the lights, the volumes in and out on Atherton Street are very low at any particular time. 90 trips in the peak hour with half in and half out, and half of those outs split between 2 egress points. Even if they were using all of one, you've got 90 trips. That equates to 1 trip every 1.5 trips per minute.
Mm-hmm.
So the volumes, although 90 sounds like a lot, and 45 ins and 45 outs might sound like a lot, it's still less than 1 per minute. So there's capacity on Atherton Street to handle that. And as Giles explained, in some ways, we think it's, in his opinion, it's actually safer to have traffic coming in and off using the signal as the safest way to enter the site.
So can I interrupt you for 1 second? Have you been able to review this new design with John Thompson?
We submitted it, and we asked it to be shared with other folks in the town. I haven't shared it specifically with John. I'm happy to do so. But we're obviously trying to be responsive to their concerns. We're stuck with the fact that we have to use Atherton Street. So the question is, how do we do it? And do we do it in a safe manner?
I think I'm wondering if you talked him through the numbers, maybe with Giles, and talked about the splitting with the exit, it might change the.
I'm happy to do it. We'll set up, a Zoom conference with him within the, first of the week so that we'll get the benefit of his comments.
Thank you.
And if you could, is
I
that,
I have unmuted David Silverman, so he
Okay,
can
so
answer
David can-
other question from April.
Yes. So if I understand, the question was the safety between a single-story building and a two-story building?
I mean, I think in some of the prior conversations about the aversion to this site location for the building was that it was preferable to have a single-story building when you have this many children in it, and there could be safety concerns for a two-story building.
Yes.
So I assume you have obviously you're going to try to design a safe building, I would imagine. But just for the public's reference, I'm hoping that we can just discuss what has changed.
So if you, is there a slide with the floor plan?
no.
There's not, okay.
Well, you have the set of plans though, right? It's not the PowerPoint, but it's the submitted plans. In the OneDrive folder, it was there.
Well, I can describe it. It's fairly simple. The egress on the second floor. I mean, one thing we do is with a two-story building is we put all the older children on the second floor. And so there's 3 preschool rooms up there in the gross motor room. We've also put staff spaces up there. So all of the younger children are in the infant and toddler rooms on the first floor. All of their classrooms have doors directly outside. And then the second floor has a stair on both ends of the building and a central corridor. On top of that, Little Sprouts is required to have regular safety drills internally and, kind of work through all of the details and, processes to make sure they get all the kids out safely. And Alyssa is on as well if you want to hear more about their safety program and how they do that for licensing purposes. But we've worked with Little Sprouts pretty closely on this to make sure that they're comfortable with the egress out of the building from the second floor.
Thanks.
If on-
I don't need to hear anything more. I'm
Okay. Okay, so April, those were your 2 questions, right? Denny,
Hello. I was wondering, are you seeking any variances?
No.
So I'm interested in the impact on the abutters. I'm looking, the parking looks very close to the property in the back. Is that setback? What is the setback there?
30 feet. And the parking spaces themselves are within the 30-foot meet the 30-foot setback.
So there's no pavement for 30
There's
feet?
pavement. The drive aisle itself is not included within the parking area. That is inside the 30-foot setback. The parking area itself, the parking spaces are all within the 30 feet.
Okay, so the setback doesn't start, okay. And that
You
falls.
have to have drive aisles and they have to connect them somewhere, so there's no setback requirement for the drive.
Okay.
Ned, the parking requirements for in that section of the code, when you have more than 5 parking spaces, I think you are required some greater setback where you have
No,
that
it's when-
drive lane.
The setback requirement triggers at 20 spaces. You can't have, I think there's a separate bylaw that deals with parking spaces within the front yard setback. If you are residential use and you've got parking spaces on the front yard, this is obviously not a residential use. The parking setbacks required for parking areas that exceed 20 spaces. It's 20 or more spaces. It's 30 feet on all sides. So we're 30 feet in off the front from Atherton Street, 30 feet on both sides from Blue Hill Avenue and the left parking area. And then obviously we're well beyond 30 feet to the southerly boundary line. The building itself is set at 20, there's a 30-foot front yard setback, 30-foot rear yard setback, a 15-foot side yard setback to the next door property. And because it also has frontage on another roadway, there's a 30-foot setback off of that roadway. So the building is set at 30 feet off of the rear. It's 24 feet off of the side where Bill's pointing with the arrow now. That's the side, that's 24 feet. 30 feet off of Blue Hill Avenue, and then obviously much more than 30 feet off the front. And so it fits within all of the bulk and setback requirements of the bylaw, which is why we won't be seeking variances. If we had turned the building as we had proposed, and in the sort of option 2, and tucked it up against Blue Hill Avenue and up against Atherton Street, we would have been much further off of the side yard setback. We would have had a 42-foot setback to the nearest point of the abutter's property, and would have been 130 feet from their dwelling. The great distance of the new building to the southerly abutter property line. But that requires setback relief because there's no room to fit within the 30 feet, 15 feet, 30-foot rear, etc. So we're going with this site plan, which is the site plan that complies with all of the zoning requirements.
So Cheryl, so you might be more familiar than I am, but does a standing lane, is the whole parking area around the parking spots, is that all considered a standing lane, a waiting lane for the cars?
Well, I do, Ned, if I may, I think we need to look at the section of the bylaw with respect to parking lots, because there are some requirements for breaking up parking lots with landscaping, and that distance where that lane is, right when you come into the right, the proximity of that, there are buffer requirements, landscape buffer requirements between the parking and the neighbors. So, I mean, I know you have a landscape plan included in the package, but that's something I think I would like to look more carefully at before our next meeting, and perhaps you can do the same.
Yeah, we very carefully made sure that those were not being treated as parking spaces. You're not allowed to park and get out of your car. You simply wait for a parking space to open. And so we treat it as part of the drive aisle and not as part of the parking area. But we'll obviously take a look.
Okay.
The other concern I have is the safety of the people trying to, so they park in the middle, right? And then they have to walk through a driving lane to get to the entrance with little ones. And I'm also wondering, when they come back and go to leave, are they going to, in fact, be like trapped, especially the ones in the front of the building? They're going to have to back out into the lane.
Right. There will be, as I think, as I said,
back out actually, because they'll have to pull in forward, and they're all going to have to back out into waiting cars. Cars are going to be waiting.
no, they will be, if a car is waiting, it's waiting on one side or the other. The volumes coming in will be approximately 1 per minute. There'll be a flow to it. It'll be like pulling into any other commercial parking lot. You're pulling in, you find a space, you back out into the drive aisle, and off you go. It'll operate no differently than the fruit center parking area and any other parking area in town. And the pace of play in the peak hours will be sufficient for safe operation during pickup and drop off, even at the peak hours.
Well, as a mom who dropped my daughter off at school quite a bit, I am very familiar with a lot of the parents are going to show up between, an hour because they're going to be trying to get to work. So I know in an ideal world, you'd stagger them all and we'd all stagger them for 3 hours, but you're going to have a lot of moms and dads going to work, and they're going to be arriving in a big lump because of their schedule. No matter how much you ask them to do it differently, it's going to happen. You're going to have a big lump arrive, and you're going to have, I think you're going to have some concerns there for safety. So I have some safety concerns.
Danny, may I just
Sure.
jump in there?
Yeah.
I think on the operational side, there is an opportunity to put a condition in on the staggered drop-off times. So while that was presented to us as a schedule previously, I think that's something we could consider as part of a decision, Denny, just to address that concern.
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. All right. So did you have another question, Denny?
I do, and I'm interested to hear from the people, so I'll try to make it quick.
Okay.
I was wondering, how many miles is it from the Little Sprouts to the Park and Ride?
It's between 1 and 2 miles. I don't know exactly.
Yeah. I just know that during peak hours, they could be stuck in traffic for a very long time. I mean, you'd be surprised. Sometimes I've tried to come home through that stretch of road, and it might take me 45 minutes just to get from those lights to where I live. The same stretch, it just stopped at certain hours. So I just don't know how that's actually going to work. Sounds good on paper, but I think in practice it's going to be very difficult.
Well,
But
I think for purposes of special events, they'll be timed during the day. There'll be shuttles. People will be parking and shuttling. They'll all be moving at the same pace. For employees, if employees use it for park and ride purposes, they'll be moving in sort of sets of 2s and 3s and 4s. So 2 or 3 will park, drive to the site in one car, and they'll leave together and drive back to the park and ride when they leave work in the afternoon. So there will be small numbers moving together within that, obviously very congested highway, but it's a very convenient location to take advantage of, and it's publicly available.
Denny, did you have another question?
yeah, I just think those are the peak hours. So if you have teachers or staff coming in the morning and leaving in the evening, or like 3:30 on, actually, that's when they're going to be stuck in traffic. I don't think the employees are going to end up wanting to do it. So it's going to be a hard thing to enforce. I think it's good for planning's sake, but I just don't know if they're actually going to follow the plan, because if you're going to add 40 minutes to their commute to work every day, and I don't know many people who would be wanting to do it. So, but I really want to hear from the public, so I'll save the rest of my questions. Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay. Rich, do you have questions at this time? Rich?
Yeah, sorry,
There you
I
go.
was muted.
Okay.
Sorry about it. No, I was just going to say, Danny made a lot of great points. I don't know anything about parking standards, so I guess my only thing would, just ask, are there any parking standards for this type of use that make it that make the flow better? I mean, I'm thinking maybe not, because I don't know how else you do it, but maybe there is. Is there anything that folks use around the country that map out parking and pick up easier so that people don't have to walk in between cars as they pick up?
So I guess that maybe, Giles, is that something that you've seen?
I think this is pretty much a standard parking lot that we see at these type of facilities. I think you need to keep in mind that these aren't new users every day. It's the same parents They're all walking their children. They're all sensitive to that. So it's the same parents every day. So it's really not a problem.
Isn't it sort of the same parking arrangement that you have down at the Thatcher School, which is, in between the park and ride and this site?
Yep.
It's remarkably similar.
I'm a neighbor to the Thatcher, and that you don't want to emulate that. It's not ideal.
I just was saying it looks to me like almost the same. So
The Thatcher is a drop off in the morning. Everybody shows up at the same time, and they leave at the same time. It's K through 8.
no, I was just meaning not so much the traffic volume, but the layout of the parking.
Oh, yeah, it's not dissimilar to the library layout.
Yeah, right.
People wander in and out of the library with the young children, and they cross the parking lot, and they have to back in and out of tight spaces. People figure it out, and they do it.
This seems tighter than than the other two examples mentioned. This just appears to me to be tighter than those two examples.
Yeah, and just to throw in there, I get and I understand what you're saying, which I also, I think the question still, I mean, it's a decent question to ask if things can be better. Just because things are done one way doesn't mean that somebody hasn't figured out something better. That's the only reason why I asked. And I'm sure that's why I'm not speaking for you, Denny, but I'm sure that's why you're asking, to see if there's any way we can always do better in our town. And quite honestly, no offense to them, but I don't care what other towns do. I mean, if we can do better, we should always do better.
And we'll keep looking.
Yeah, if I can just add that the aisle width is 20 feet in the one-way circulation, and typically a two-way aisle would be 22 to 24 feet. So it's really a very generous width for that circulation. And keep in mind, it also will accommodate truck traffic traveling through the site. So the widths are fine, and they meet any industry practice that you would see.
Okay, Rich, do you have any other questions? I don't hear any more from you, Rich. I'm assuming you're still unmuted.
Oh, it looks like he's muted.
He's muted again. Okay, where is he here?
Sorry for all that trouble. I mean, I've got little kids in the house, so that's why I keep
So
myself
you're muting
muted.
yourself, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to hear my children at this time of night.
All right, I assume that.
But no, I don't have any. I don't have anything else. It was a good conversation.
Okay, I just have a couple of things. Some of them are a little detail oriented that we can take up in further detail at the next meeting. I was wondering if you, and I had asked Dan Clark, and I just looked, I don't see that he's with us, to give us a little overview of the current status of the planning for the fire station addition. But I don't see that he's with us. So have you met with them, or they met with you and discussed what the circulation may be in their planning?
I have met with Dan and Brian Walsh and had general review. So I'm aware that at least their representation to me is that they thought this site layout worked well. They thought that the traffic pattern in and out of Atherton Street was appropriate. I understand that they're probably, assuming we get approved, that the fire building process is a little bit behind ours, but there'll be construction happening at least simultaneously.
I guess more, was a little bit, there's definitely logistics with construction, but I was thinking more about whether any of the flow is going to change. And so hopefully maybe Dan will be able to join us tonight.
My understanding from them, I'm sorry, is that the new addition with the new engine garage is going to be on the Bradley Road side of the fire station. And that they're really focused on Bradley Road as the primary means of egressing the fire station for purposes of accessing Blue Hill Avenue north and south, and Atherton Street on the other side of Blue Hill Avenue. They're coming out straight out at Bradley Road, as opposed to cutting right and then back left up Atherton Street.
So maybe like my request could be that when you meet with John Thompson, that you include Dan or someone from the fire station building committee
Sure.
and possibly Giles, and just report back to us on how the flow of the fire station
Sure.
and this site will work. Okay.
I'd be happy to do that.
All right. Thank you. And then also, I am presuming that John Thompson will review the stormwater submission, the report, and the drawings, and that we would like to hear from him, Bill, at some point on his review. A couple of things on the site lighting. Wanted to make sure that the specifications for the fixtures were dark sky compliant, and that they have glare shields or house side shields when they're close to the abutting residential properties. There's if you go to, that's the one that's a building mount, but there's a pole fixture, which is that one. I think I saw there's a 10-foot pole, which is good. I did see that there is one located near the exit drive onto Blue Hill Avenue, and there seems to be a street light there as well. Just want to make sure we're not going to be putting too much light into that location with respect to neighbors. So again, I'm not looking for an answer tonight. I just want to point these things out so that you could come back to us in 2 weeks with some thoughts on those. And then on the if you're going to have any security lighting around the building, it would be best to have that be a motion sensor. So again, thinking of the residential abutters.
Right.
Okay, so I think you already mentioned that the lights, the parking lot lights would be scheduled to be turned off sometime shortly after closing, or when the building maybe cleanup is done, etc. And then I saw there's on that abutting property to the left, I guess that's the Moody's. I believe there's a retaining wall called out. I don't think it's very tall. The plan showed Versalock. I'm wondering why we need Versalock for such a short height retaining wall, and whether that could be more of a stone wall. And then also I was looking, it says chain link fence, and it seems to me for that abutting property it would be nicer to have a different kind of fence than chain link there. Again, if you could take a look at that. And then I saw the transformer and the dumpster are located close to Blue Hill Avenue there. And while there's fencing around the dumpster and some landscaping, I'd like you to consider whether those are the best locations for the transformer and the dumpster.
I think they're the better location because they're not near another house. I mean, if you look at the other spots that could possibly be there, they'd be closer to an abutter. You're not really going to be bothering people on Brush Hill Road at that point. I'd like to see maybe some better screening around it, but I can't think that I'd want it closer, to the Moody's or closer to the abutter in the back. Just a point. Just my observation.
I mean, if the dumpster stays there, maybe the transformer moves over towards the left, and so that you're not, that exit's not flanked by two utility items.
We can certainly screen them.
Yeah, so I'd be looking for a little more detail on that screening, I guess. So that's, I think those are the things that I have on my notes. So we will now go to the public. I believe there's a raise hand feature for folks who are joining us by device and not by phone. But maybe, considering that I don't know which is which, Bill, can we unmute everyone, or should I just do an unmute all?
The hand feature is on.
Okay, so I guess those who want themselves muted then, Mike, are the ones who are still muted?
Yes.
Okay, so those who are still muted, it's in your hands to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. So first what I'd like to do is just get a sense of how many want to speak. So if you could say your name, and then after that, I will call on folks.
Michael Fee.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm surprised with 47 people, we have one. I was nervously waiting for that one.
Well, you have a lot on your agenda, so it's probably a lot of other people for other things.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Fee, you please go ahead.
I'm going to mute everybody and then come back and unmute Mr. Fee.
Okay.
Thanks very much. I'm mindful of the short time frame that you've got and the fact that you're going to continue the hearing and accept written submissions between now and the next time you deliberate. And so
Wait a minute. I got to get Michael Fee. Go.
did you hear anything I just said?
No.
Okay. My name is Michael Fee. I represent some, but not all of the abutters. I'm mindful of the fact that there's a lot of people waiting to be heard, so I'll be very brief. Ned made reference to the fact that some of my clients were engaged in conversation with him about a different design for the site. And those discussions were very productive and very civil. But the gist of my clients' objections to this project is its massive scale. They believe that the 125 children and 25 staff is just an overwhelming amount of traffic for this particular site. And the discussions that we've had were always focused on trying to make the building smaller, to cut down the number of kids that would be in and out of this facility at any given time, thus lessening the impact on the neighborhood. Now, I appreciate Giles' really thorough examination of the traffic issues, but we also read the Route 138 corridor study and had some different takeaways from it. And I'll put this in a letter to the board, and you can think about it and consider it between now and the next hearing. But the 138 corridor study is focused on 10 intersections along Blue Hill Avenue. And of the 10, the Bradley-Atherton intersection was the second worst. And in 2015, the Mass DOT designated it as a high crash location, which is only given to 5% of the worst intersections in the region. And if you've been to this place, you know that because of its odd geometry, its location, the lack of visibility, given that it's at the crest of a hill, and the poor signage and the lack of a left-hand turn, all of those factors contribute to a very dangerous intersection that my clients have to traverse through every single day. And from our standpoint, the solution to this particular issue is to ask the developer to consider toning down the scale of this development. The neighborhood is willing to work with this use and to be cooperative. But I think that the more that you look at this closely, you'll realize that the massive scale of this is not appropriate. The other concern that we have, and again, I'll put this in writing, is Giles' analysis about the number of trips. He says that there's 90 trips in peak hours, and Ned suggests that sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Well, if you look at the ITE standards, they have the threshold of 100 trips per hour is a signal that you have a significant traffic potential issue that requires further extensive study. And I would suggest to the board that the fact that we are 90 or 10 less than the ITE threshold for further study, and you've got this intersection that is clearly documented by DOT and others as a high crash zone, I think we really, the planning board would do well to take a very hard look at how this traffic flow is, how the flow in and out of the site is going to impact the surrounding neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fee. And Mr. Ham, if you could be prepared to join us in 2 weeks and respond to those concerns, that would be great. With that, Ned, I'd like to be able to move this now to continue it to our next meeting 2 weeks from today.
That's fine. Would we be 7:05.
I believe that's what it would be. Bill, is that right?
7:10. 7:10.
7:10? Okay, so I'm just going to give one more.
What, do you know what's ahead of it, just so that I'm aware?
I don't, but I'll let you know shortly.
Okay.
Okay, so again, as Mr. Fee noted, this presentation and this meeting, well, the presentation and all the materials that were reviewed tonight are on the planning board's website, and this presentation or this meeting will be on Milton Access TV's website to view on demand, and the planning board would receive comments between now and our next meeting via those being emailed to the planning department, and then those would be shared with us. Okay? So with that, I'll take a motion to continue to our meeting on June 25th at 7:10.
I'd make the motion to continue the hearing till June 25th at 7:10 p.m.
I'll second.
Okay.
Can I just ask one question of the attorney? I'm happy for it to be continued, but while we have the attorney there, can I just, and did anyone else from the community want to speak? My question is, I noticed that our town council weighed in via email and explained that we can, so he said, in considering a site plan, the planning board shall assure to a degree consistent with reasonable use of the site for the purpose permitted or permissible by the regulations of the district in which located. Convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site and in relation to adjacent streets, property, and improvements. So that's one of the areas that we have to, or we can rule on.
Yes, I agree with that.
And-
Section 8B23 of the bylaw says that.
Right.
Okay.
I would, but I would add to that you're limited by the fact that this is a Dover Amendment use specifically authorized by state statute, and state statute limits what you can really look at in terms of impacts from the site plan use. You cannot use site plan or a special permit process to deny a Dover Amendment use that meets all of the other direct zoning requirements laid out in the statute.
But you're before us for site plan approval, and safety is one of the things that we take into consideration for the site plan approval.
Understood, and we think we've met that burden.
So I'm going to, sorry, I've got to manage our agenda for tonight, and I'm going to ask us to continue this discussion at our next meeting, okay? Bill
Can I
had his
just
hand
ask-
up, though.
Can I just ask Mr. Fee to prepare one item to discuss at our next meeting? And that is the visibility as you're coming onto 138 from the site is of concern to me.
Respectfully, Denny, Michael Fee is an excellent lawyer. He's not a traffic engineer. So what would be the point of getting an opinion from Mr. Fee about the visibility of the...
I'd like to get another opinion.
Okay,
He's
so
not a traffic engineer. Are you asking the abutters to provide a competing traffic report?
Well, I like to ask our experts for their opinions.
all right, so I guess what I would suggest is that we ask Giles to respond to that concern and comment, and that in their meeting with town engineer John Thompson, that they discuss that together and come back to us with their joint opinion, to Kathleen's point. And Mr. Fee is obviously welcome to continue to point out things in the study, the Route 138 study, and others that we should consider. Okay,
Thank you.
Bill, did you want to add anything before we vote on the motion?
I do, and it just has to do with the timing on the 25th.
Okay.
I may be scheduling two things at the same time, but understand that I'm trying not to, but I don't have the 25th with me right here. So it'll be, if 7:10 is already taken, It's one of Ned's projects anyways. It's the scenic road. So Ned, you'll be on at 7:10 anyways.
Why don't we put that one later in the evening and put this one at 7:10? This one's,
Then I'll
It's
move you at
advertised.
7:05 to 7:10. I just have them spaced out and,
that's fine.
all right,
You can only go one at a time, and you have to get through one before you get to the next, so
you're
I
right.
understand.
Okay,
Yes.
All
I mean, we
right,
have
so-
a motion that's being exactly specific.
All right, then I'm going to say 7:12.
All right.
Amend your motion.
I would amend my motion to say 7:12 on June 25th. 7:12:05.
All right, so we have to do a roll call vote. Kathleen O'Donnell,
In favor?
April Anderson,
Yes.
Denny Swenson,
Yes.
Rich Beeler. Rich, have you unmuted yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry. Yes, I
Yes,
couldn't
okay.
unmute myself. It wouldn't let me.
Okay. And Cheryl Tagayas, yes. All right, thank
Thanks,
you
Cheryl.
all. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks,
Okay?
Mike.
Thank you.
All right, before we get to the 7:25, we're just going to quickly open and continue the 710 Scenic Road. Many numbers, 324, 328, 334, 340, 344 Adams Street. There was an issue with the public advertisement for that, so we just need to open it and continue it to our next meeting on June 25th at 7:10.
Yes.
So I'll take a motion.
I will move to continue the hearing on the scenic roads for various numbers on Adams Street. 324, 328, 334, 340, and 344 Adams Streets to June 25th at 7:10.
Second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Roll call vote. Kathleen O'Donnell,
Yes.
April Anderson,
Yes.
Denny Swenson,
Yes.
Rich Beeler,
Yes.
and Cheryl Tagayas, yes. Okay, now we'll open the site plan approval public hearing for 193 Central Ave. And Marion McKettrick, I believe you heard what I had suggested with the prior application. We're going to start with your presentation. We'll have questions from the board. We'll take public comment, and then we plan to continue. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do you have a presentation that you want Bill to call up? Or any
I'd like
drawings?
you to at least call up the site plan. So that, and I'd just like to say, yes, I represent the applicant, and with me this evening are the engineer for the project, John Tilton, the architect for the project, Joseph Walsh, Aaron Witt from the Goddard School, and Sunny and Simi Verma, who are the applicants. They are all here, I believe, and so if questions come up, particularly with the engineer, I'd like to have the engineer go through parts of the site plan with you. I'm going to make a few introductory remarks, and then if you're agreeable, ask the engineer to talk in more detail about the site plan, how the site is laid out. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Okay. So I've filed the site plan application for approval for a new use for what was the Huzik building, and most recently has been permitted under a special permit as a social club. This is the building at 193 Central Avenue. The Goddard School is proposing, this is another school application, is proposing to use this building for a preschool and daycare facility. The building, as you know, was constructed in 1914. It's described on MACRIS, the state's listing of historic buildings. The building will be kept with its exterior appearance, but the use will change. The site is approximately 64,000 square feet. There is one 7,200 square foot parcel that's going to be excluded from this site. It's shown on an A&R plan the planning board approved 2 years ago. The plan has been taken to the registry, and it should be showing up in the public record within a couple of days. So I filed an updated site plan, 2 pages, the regular site plan page and then the drainage plan to show you that this site does not include that 7,200 square foot parcel. We're going to, the reason we are submitting a site plan application is because this is a business use, and there are some changes required to the exterior of the building, primarily those changes that you need to make to provide handicapped access, also to replace some older windows and to provide ventilation for the classrooms. Chapter 10 of the general bylaws, the zoning bylaws, requires that there be site plan approval of the construction, reconstruction, or alteration of more than 800 square feet of a commercial building if there's any change proposed to the exterior. So that's why we're here tonight. This is a as of right use. Preschool and daycare is an allowed use, but we have taken a great deal of time to work out a site plan that we believe meets all the zoning bylaw requirements that apply to this site, and that's why I'd like to go through it in more detail. The owner of this particular school, which is a subchapter S corporation, will hold a franchise from the Goddard School, and Sunny Verma will be the president and will be the operator. Will be managing the school, but it will be the Goddard School, and the name of the school will be the Goddard School. The plan is to use both levels of the building, the ground floor and the first floor, for a total of 12 classrooms, and these will serve children from infancy until they are ready to go to kindergarten. The program will be available as a full day or a half day option, and it will be open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays only. There will be handicapped access at all the doors to the building, and there will be ramps leading out to the playground at the rear of the building. This will be a change to the previous use of this building. It's a substitution of a different type of impact and a removal of the type of impact that we've had over the years with the facility, with the event facility that it has been. There will no longer be intensive weekend and evening use and noise and large volumes of parked cars on the street on the weekends and the evenings. And the parent drop-off times will vary according to work schedules. They will tend to cluster during the times that people go to work and come home from work, but also because there's a half-day option, not all children will be arriving at the end of the day or the beginning of the day. Playground use in the back of the building where a playground is going to be built will be scheduled at different times for different classrooms, so not all the children will be out in the playground at the same time. So with the application, we've provided a 13-page site plan, and what I want to focus on particularly is the site plan that you're looking at right now, as well as a stormwater drainage report, a playground plan, and a landscaping plan. There has been a stormwater study done of the site. There will be facilities to manage stormwater. There is no increase in flow according to the study that has been done with the facilities that will be installed. And the full report has gone to the Department of Public Works to be reviewed and hopefully to be approved. On the site, there are 30 parking spaces provided. Some of them are in an existing parking lot, which is closer to Central Ave. And on the front driveway, there are a couple. And then there is a new parking lot toward the right side rear of the building. The total number of spaces, 30 spaces, exceeds the Milton zoning bylaw requirement, which is 3 parking spaces for every 2 instructional rooms for preschool and kindergarten. That would be 18 parking spaces for 12 classrooms. On our plan, we've marked where trees are to be removed. The landscaping plan provides a great deal of detail as to species of plants and trees that are going to be planted, and also those that cannot be planted near a preschool program. So we will review I'd like to review that landscaping plan if we have time tonight. On the site plan, locations are provided on the edges of parking areas for lights on poles, and I think these are either 10 or 12-foot poles. And there's a photometric plan showing no lighting overspill onto neighboring residential properties. There are also specifications for suggested lights, although we would like to discuss the lights to be used with the planning board, see what suggestions they or neighbors may have. These are all proposed plans, and we're very happy to hear suggestions for improvements if there are some. Fencing has to surround all areas to be used by children. The plan includes a page that has fencing specifications. So there's all of the detail is provided in the site plan. So at this point, what I would like to do is to ask the engineer, John Tilton, if he's here, let's make sure he's here. And if not, I will go through the site plan.
He's here, and I'll unmute him now, Marianne.
Okay, if John could explain in more detail some of the features of the site plan we're looking at.
John, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Okay, thank you. For the record, John Tilton from Williams and Sprogges Engineering. Actually, Marion covered mostly everything in my presentation. She did a good job. Briefly, I'll just go through real quick. I don't want to repeat things she said, but on the site plan itself, we're entering the site from the existing curb cut on Central Ave. There's parking in the front of the building, but it's more gravel. There's no line parking. We're going to utilize that area for our parking, basically for the parents picking and dropping off. And then towards the back, be more towards overflow parking and parking for teachers or administrators there. In the very front of the building, between Central and Columbine, we have 3 spots there. Those are just real quick drop off, pick up. I think we have limited time limits there in the front. So those are 3 spots. So those, in total, we have 30 parking spaces on the site. To the back of the building, we're proposing 2 playground areas. Marion, I don't know if you can show that to them. It butt up against Columbine Road.
Bill, can you slide that plan over?
More towards Columbine, yeah, the playground areas. So playground areas in the back, they're going to be fenced in with vinyl fencing, 6 foot vinyl fencing, privacy fence, and security areas for the children. There's no access from those areas right to the parking lot. You have to go through the building or through gates back to the outside areas. The only thing we're adding to this site plan here, we're adding additional handicap ramps. It's not shown in this plan.
I think the other one may be better.
Yeah, the grading plan. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, thank you. A little harder to see, but on that one you can see we have handicap ramps leading from the back of the school to the playground area. Those are only really changes on my plan we're proposing to the exterior of the building. There's one in the front handicap ramp, but there are existing handicap ramps there now, so we're going to use that one also. Dumpsters proposed in the back. So that's it for the site plan. If you want to go to, say, the drainage plan, that one works right there. That's good. It's a little hard to see because this plan was divided. It shows the parcel 1 on it, parcel A, parcel 1. We have 4. In the drainage study, we did. We mitigated for the 2, 10, 100-year storms. It complies with DEP stormwater management standards. There are 4 subsurface drainage areas. There's 4 catch basins on the site, 2 in the back, 2 in the front, which will pick up the drainage and distribute to the 4 individual subsurface stormwater areas. Let's see. We don't show any disturbance on parcel 1. Our grading ends at the lot line. There's no cutting of trees in parcel 1, no grading in parcel 1. There's no work proposed in parcel 1. From the property line on parcel 1 to our parking lot area is about 50 feet or so of undisturbed, no cut zone. We're not going to propose any cut at this time. Trees will remain in place there. Those trees will stay. Trees to be removed. There's a couple in the playground area, right? Correct. There's one there, one towards Columbine Road, a larger one there,
Right
and a few there's a few up towards Central Street by the entrance where we have stormwater in that area there, posing stormwater management. So some of those trees will have to be removed. If you go to the lighting plan, that would be sheet.
C4.1,
Yeah, sheet 10.
or C10, yeah.
Just when I thought I had it.
We have photometric plan.
I actually don't remember this one.
It's the 10th page. It's titled C41.
Yeah.
While they're looking for that, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
On Marion, on C1.1, you got Lot A and Lot B. Is that sort of area between that triangle piece? Is that sort of lot? How much are you buying?
We're buying everything except the 7,200 square foot area, which is parcel 1 on the updated site plan, and that's what you need to look at to see what the site is.
Thanks.
What number am I looking for?
Sheet 10.
It's in that same, are you referencing the full set?
It's a full site plan, and it's the
Yeah.
10th sheet.
So Bill, it was in the set that you had open.
Right.
Yeah.
5, 3, 2, 1.
We're not seeing that, Bill. What we're seeing is your list of files. I think you have to select
Oh.
what you're sharing in your screen
Yep.
share.
That's sheets 2 of 13. So if you go to sheet 10,
Go down, yeah. Keep
there you
going.
go. Yep.
4,
Yeah.
7, 8, 9 is 10.
What happened?
No, it's not showing the whole thing.
That's odd.
That would be the sheet.
Keep going. You haven't gone far enough.
I'm going 12 now.
Hmm.
I don't know why these are doing that, but
Yeah, it's not showing the entire sheet. Does the hard copy show?
It's after utilities. Now that's the architectural plan.
let's try.
Drainage, details, and then utilities, and then photometric.
Those are the drainage ones. Ooh, that's why that thing's so big.
I'll speak as you look for it. So we're proposing it's
Anyway.
12 light poles on the site, dark compliant. Typically, a site this we'd have probably 6 light poles, but because of the trying to be dark compliant, we have them 12-foot mounted, lower lights. So they basically stay on site with the candle lights. And they're spread out throughout the site. We have 2 at the entrance, 3 out front, several in the back. So typically we would have half that many and higher poles, but to reduce the glare and off-site lighting, we've added additional lights and lowered them and to be dark compliant. They should be, you can see them on your hard copy. You can't see them on some reason on this set. We're using a,
And everybody did get a full-size set of plans.
Yeah, they're right here.
But the members of the public can't see
I know, and I didn't bring mine home either, but there's 10 and I can't see 10.
Let me see if I can pull it up because I can share my screen as well. And what's the file name that you have open, Bill?
I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna do a screen share.
Site
Hold
plan
on.
application, Goddard School, 6/1/2020.
Bill, end your screen share, and I will do a screen share. All right, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
yeah.
That only is 3 pages though.
That's the other one.
Yeah. It's not that one.
You didn't put it in the OneDrive then?
I took it off the first one.
This is the updated site plan.
Right. I took it
Right.
off the very
Yeah, all the
first one that
pages.
started with the narrative.
Started with the narrative. All right, I got it.
That one.
Ah,
And then go down to 10.
You see it still?
yeah.
No. Go down, that's 7. That's 8, 9,
Here it is.
there's 10.
This
There
is
it is.
There
Okay.
it is.
You got it. So.
All
I mean,
right.
It's still tricky to see, but the light proposing it's called a Tradition Air. And it's an LED light. It has the old fashioned style look to it. We have labeled as letter
It's up
A.
to the left.
Right. So we have, that's the light we're proposing, 12-foot mounted light. Intent was to be dark compliant. We have,
So this is the location here.
right, wherever there's an
Everywhere
A.
there's an A.
Correct. A. So we have several, and typically would have 6 maybe, but because it would be higher mounted, brighter lights, but to be dark compliant, we have 12 lights, 12-foot mounted with shield guards in certain areas. In the abutting property too, there's a retaining wall and a fence, which will even more so help block the glare on the right-hand side off Central Ave. So that's it. I'm sure there'll be some lighting questions, but we don't, on our plan, we didn't propose any security lighting. Basically, we'll leave it to the architect and their plan, and we'll try to coordinate our style with their style.
Okay, so were there any other drawings that you wanted to, Marion or John, draw our attention to at the moment?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we have all the layout. We have the architectural layout plans. I'm not sure whether you want to go through those in detail. The main features to point out are that there will be an elevator constructed in this building in addition to the handicapped access exterior finishes. That requires a central area that may protrude somewhat from the from an opening in the roof. That's a new feature. There was no elevator in the building before, and it's necessary in order to have handicapped access from the ground floor to the main floor. Otherwise, there's going to be substantial renovation in the interior of the building to lay out the classrooms. There will be ventilation, possibly provided more ventilation from classrooms directly up to the roof. Those are the only changes that will be caused by the interior design of the building. If you have an interest in looking at the layout, we can put it up.
But all the interior is coming out, right?
As far as I can see, I mean, because you have to lay out all these classroom spaces.
Yeah, I mean the stage and that whole.
That's actually, I can't point to things, but I think the stage area is a raised area still, but I'm not sure whether the use is the same.
Mhm.
So the orientation of this plan would be, this side is the Central Ave side. On the right, this would be the lower level, and then this is the Central Ave side on the first floor.
Correct.
And these terraces that go out to the playground area and the new entrance from the parking lot here. It does show a ramp up to the stage, and it's called the classroom for ages 3 to 5. So this office is here at the new main entrance. The existing entrance that people are probably familiar with now here is still an entrance, although it's not handicapped accessible. And then it's classrooms and some offices. And downstairs, it's more classrooms. All right, so I think unless there's more that you would like to present to us, we can go to questions from board members. And since I'm doing the screen share now, Bill, I think it would be easier or better for you to manage the participants. So when we're ready to mute and unmute folks, I did get a text message saying that there were neighbors who wanted to speak on the last, on the 919 Blue Hill Ave, and I didn't see them under the participants or the video. So if you could watch that, please, for this one, that would be great. Okay, so Kathleen, do you have questions?
No, I just wanted to disclose that actually I was one of the signers of the special permit for the zoning board when the club came before the town for approval. So.
Okay. Do you see that as any reason for you to be unbiased in your review now?
No, I don't think so. It's not the same use.
Okay, very good. Denny, do you have questions now?
Yes. So do we know what's happening with Lot 1? Are they planning to build there at any point in the future, or they're just not going to buy it, or we don't know what's going to happen with that lot?
Shall I answer?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
If you're speaking of parcel 1 on the updated site plan, the 7,200 square foot,
Yes.
the owner is retaining that. That's under that's in litigation right now.
Oh, okay.
So when the litigation is resolved, I don't know anything more about the litigation, but it's with the neighbors, the Atwoods, on that side on Columbine Road.
It's here,
not
right?
anything to do with the school or the site. It's not going to be used by the school for anything. It's not a conforming lot. It's a non-buildable parcel.
Okay. And what would the impact to Columbine Road be? Would it just be, well, I'll let you answer.
So the impact to Columbine Road?
Yes.
Well, there won't be any entrances and exits off Columbine Road. It will look different because they're going to be looking at playground facilities. There is landscaping. We didn't review the landscaping plan yet, and it might be something to be discussed, but they will be, the residents of Columbine Road will be able to see children in the playground when they're out in the playground, and they'll see the playground equipment. And there will be an area in the rear of the lot that will still be, that whole area with the drainage structure under it is all just open area.
And can you describe what the experience would be? Would they be hearing the children out at recess, or like would it be, from 7 to 6, or would there be limited times?
I had that question from one neighbor, and I asked Sonny Verma. He may want to answer too, but as he explained it, first of all, this is infancy to pre-kindergarten. So these are very young children. They would be go out into the playground with their classes, and they would go out at staggered times. So, and there are also a couple of different playground areas for different age children. So you would never have the whole population of the school out in the playground at one time. I think, I don't know when playground times, maybe Mr. Verma would want to answer that, but they might tend to be towards the middle of the day, but I'm not sure. They may just vary throughout the day.
So would your landscaping take into consideration sound mitigation for the neighbors?
We're happy to talk about that if that's an issue for a neighbor. We'd have to look at the landscaping plan to see what, if anything, is planned along that edge. I know there's a fence. There has to be a fence. And I suppose there might be some sound mitigation just from the fence. If they wanted, I don't know whether that's an issue or not. For people I'd like to hear, I'm sure the neighbors may have something to say about it.
Okay, we'll get to that, to the neighbors shortly. Denny, did you have other questions?
I was wondering if the historic committee has given any feedback on
The Historical Commission?
yes.
So, Marion, have you submitted the drawings to the Historical Commission?
No, we're not changing the building. I mean, the whole point of this project is that the building is going to remain. The Historic Commission is interested in finding reuses for historic buildings, and that's what this is. We haven't met with them. I'd be happy to send the drawings.
The exterior appearance is going to remain the same, and then the interior historical aspects would as well?
No, the interior will not remain the same.
The
Historical Commission
it's
is
not
never-
protected, the interior.
It's not a protected building, first of all, but it is historic. It's a 1914 building. And I know the prior applications to reuse this as a social club were also attempts to keep the building that seems to have value for some residents in Milton, and it has historic value. And so this application also keeps the building. The exterior will continue to look the way it does now. The interior will be changed. The Historical Commission, I'll use the Bent's building as an example, has expressed to me that what they would like to see is the exterior, at least, of these buildings to remain as a reminder of Milton history. They don't expect that the same use is going to continue, that the interior can stay the same, and they don't have any control over that. But I'd be happy to send it to them and get any comments they might have. I think we're doing something that's consistent with what their objectives are.
Marion, if I may, actually the bank has sent a copy to the historical.
Right, but they probably sent it to the state Macris, right?
That's correct, yes.
And we're talking about I believe we're talking about the Milton Historical Commission, so we'll send it to them too.
Okay. And
Yeah, sorry, Denny, if I may. That was one of the things that I wanted to point out too, and it really just has to do with, what kind of doors and windows that you're going to use, how is the dormer designed, because there are choices in what you do with those, and their feedback, I think, can be beneficial. So just while you're taking note on that, because Denny, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in on the historical part while you raised it. I'd like to see the building elevations with the new doors and windows and dormer shown. Also, the mechanical equipment where the exhaust would be on the elevations. And if there's equipment on the roof, like we did, I'm sure that other board members may remember when we reviewed Milton Marketplace, we asked for a section through the building so that we could see that the equipment wouldn't be visible from the street. And that requires the architect to cut a section through the building and show the size of the equipment. It doesn't require a lot of detail on the equipment, just the overall size. So that would be something I would request. It's all related to how these changes impact the existing building. Not that they aren't necessary, but there are choices in how they're done.
And I think the architect, Joseph Walsh, is on this at this meeting. And so if he is here, I just ask him if that's something he can do.
I can unmute him. Mr. Walsh, there you are. You're unmuted if you'd like to comment. I believe he's unmuted. Well, you might have to unmute yourself. I unmuted you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We haven't looked at in detail as to what the new equipment will need to be. There is a bunch of condensers on the ground around the building, and also on the flat roof that's in the northeast corner of the building. We will need to provide some type of fresh air ventilation to all the classrooms. And my thought was we could do some equipment up in the attic space, but we would need probably to add a dormer with a vent, probably on the classroom, the playground side of the building. But we haven't really looked in detail about that yet. There is a bunch of the windows have been replaced already, and the doors, most of the doors will probably have to be replaced because they're either too narrow or they're original 100-year-old doors that really do not provide any weather tightness. But we can look at that also.
Okay, so thank you. And Denny, did you have further questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the fire chief had, or the town engineer had weighed in. I always like to get a letter in the file on the safety aspects of the entries and exits and the parking plan.
I know that the preliminary plan, I sent this plan as it was the same plan, but I sent it in a preliminary way. And I know Mr. Clark sent it out, I believe, to those three, the town engineer, the fire chief, and particularly to the building commissioner. The building commissioner did respond that he had no issues with zoning with this site plan. And I don't know if we got a response back, but these plans, Bill can correct me on this, but I believe the site plan, this application, the site plan, it goes to those individuals, so we should be getting feedback, but I haven't gotten any yet.
Police and fire had none.
No comments?
No comment.
Okay.
Okay, Denny, and other questions?
Yeah, process point for later. I think we should get something in the file when, just as a checklist item. I might have missed it in your presentation, but what's the total number of staff and children expected?
Under current, let's see, what do I have?
You had 165.
Current EEC guidelines, and I don't know what I said in the application, but under current EEC guidelines, 116 students is the number that's allowed. There are 12 classrooms. I don't know the staff numbers. Sonny, do you want to give us some idea of that?
It's 24.
24 staff. And are they all there at the same time, or do they work on different schedules?
Go ahead, Sonny, you can answer.
Oh, sorry. Yes, so they're there at different times.
Okay. One of the things I know, go ahead.
Oh, Marion, I was just going to point out, I read that you had in the application 165 students.
Yes, and that was based on physical size of the building, not on regulations or what would be allowed. That was a while ago, and Sonny has told me more recently that he's been told 116 students.
Do you mind just sending us some kind of documentation to that effect, please, for the record?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll update the application because that's new information.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Denny?
And also, neighbors from this neighborhood have come in before complaining about parking. I remember distinctly a man coming in and saying that he was running into problems where people were parking on his driveway. So residents were getting stuck within their driveway, and that's of course a safety issue. And I remember we were talking at the time about possibly putting time limit parking signs on so they could only park there for a short time and things like that. And I just wanted to alert you that there's some sensitivity in the neighborhood. They've been through a lot over the years that I'm aware of. And so I'm looking for creative solutions.
Well, the application, the school does not intend to, the school wants parents to drive in and park on site. I realize that Central Ave is a wide street and that at times that may happen, but the site has been laid out so that they'll come in and park. They have sidewalks that they can use to get safely into the building. These are very young children. So the school wants them to be using parking on site. If the town decided to put time limits on parking on the street, the school would certainly, that would be fine. That would be, the school certainly wouldn't object. But I just want to make the point that this is not a plan that's been laid out expecting all of the parents to be lining up on the streets. They're supposed to come in and park in the parking areas.
Okay. Okay. And one last point, I know we discussed we would have a more in-depth landscape plan in future meetings. I would
There is
encourage.
one here.
This is the one on the screen.
Okay, I would encourage some more trees along Columbine Road.
Okay. Can we bring the landscape plan up? Oh, are we looking at it?
We're looking at it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. There's no new trees along that edge, right?
Yeah. I think I would just encourage that. I think it would be nicer for the use because you are having the children outside.
Yep.
Quite a bit. I think it would be a nice buffer. It would serve both the property and the abutters and the neighborhood as a whole. So thank you, Marion, for hearing me out.
Yep.
So April, before I get to you, I'm just going to add on the landscaping. Right here is a 36-inch oak tree. And it's unclear to me why the plans say that that needs to be removed, except that that's how the playground is. Maybe it's the like a flooring type system that has to go here on the ground. But I'd like for that to be reconsidered, whether that 36, unless it's in poor health condition, because if we look at Google Earth, that's a pretty tall, big tree, and that would change the character along here quite a bit. The other 36-inch oak is right here, and it seems to me that's right where some storm drain pipe is. But again, is there anything that can be done with that design to save those two 36-inch oaks? And then thirdly, on the landscape, this is a grouping of trees with rock, and this storm drainage system right here, I think if this is the property line, and then these tree canopies come out and there's rock, I just question whether this landscape here that exists will survive. And if that's in the public way, then I do have a concern about that. And I sent some photos to Bill, but I'd have to share the screen back or send the screen back to Bill to call up the photos. But, and maybe we can do that now, or maybe we can, at the end of this, or maybe we do it in 2 weeks. But while we were on landscape, I wanted to make those points. And then I'll move on to April. So April, do you have questions?
Yes. So I guess just to follow up on Denny's, we don't have a checklist for this application. So what's been done, but we need to hear from all the department heads, particularly on the stormwater report. We need John Thompson's feedback.
Yeah.
I also agree with the Historic Commission consultation. I think everyone does. It's something we request quite often. So to the extent that either our staff or Marion can make that happen, that would be great. It sounds like that will be favorable anyway, so why not ask for them to weigh in? I would like some explanation of what kind of neighborhood engagement has occurred. I know Marion mentioned discussion with a neighbor, but I'm wondering, has there been any outreach given this climate that we're in? It's hard for people to know how people are being engaged, and if there has been feedback. Obviously, this has been a controversial site in prior iterations of uses here, so it would be good to know that the neighbors at least know this is happening.
Can I answer that? What we've done so far? At the same time that you sent your public notice out, I personally, as the attorney, sent out a letter to everyone within 300 feet. So the same people who were receiving the public notice received a longer letter attempting to explain some of what this application was about, what was being attempted, what some of the features were. My telephone number, email address, contact information were all in that letter. I did speak with the Atwoods, who are currently involved in litigation with the owner. We talked about several things. Their primary focus was making sure that 7,200 square foot area was not part of the site, which I assured them was never the intention. And since then we're recording the A&R plan so that it's clear. And And so we're definitely available. I am always available to speak with anyone, maybe after this hearing, after people have had a chance to hear the discussion and look more at the plan. I encouraged everybody, to look at the site plans that would be on the website. But it's true, it's more difficult. You don't have a big gathering type of meeting now. So I'm encouraging everyone to send an email. They have my email address. Call me on the phone. I'm happy to talk. And, I can come to someone's house and we can stand outside at 6 feet apart and have a discussion. In any way that I can, I certainly want to get feedback. So, for example, the issue of trees along Columbine Road, that sounds nice. If it's possible to do, if there's a way to design that in, I think it sounds interesting. And I'd be interested in hearing from the Columbine Road neighbors about what their thoughts would be about screening along that edge too, since they're the ones that will be looking directly at it. And maybe on lighting. We want, the intention is to preserve any trees we can. I understand what the chairman is saying about the street trees and the drainage structures. Some cases, drainage structures have to be installed. That's how we can control the drainage. So if there needs to be mitigation or something, we're going to go back and look at all the comments that we've received. I don't know if that's so much an issue with the neighbors. There may be other things. I did get a question about the schedule of playground use, though, from a neighbor. So I tried to explain that. We could provide more information if necessary.
Thank you. I appreciate that you did the proactive outreach by mail too. I think that's just what I wanted to know. So thank you very much. And the last question is about the playground space. It looks like there's 2 separate playground spaces that are gated. Is that for different age groups or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, April. Rich, do you have questions at this time?
You might be muted.
Sorry. Nope. No question.
All right, then I have a couple more questions or comments. I'm going to go to a different plan here.
Can I say something while you're doing that?
Yes.
If the public wants to make a comment, if they hit the bottom of their picture, they can raise their hand. If they raise their hand, we'll see it and we can call on them that way. Otherwise, I really can't see a lot of people.
Right, it's with 30 and 40 some, it's a little bit harder to see. We'll do our best, and we'll definitely be continuing. I wanted to point out here and ask this question. This is Central Ave on the right, and the abutter here. There's an existing, there's a change of grade here already, and now these contours are being pulled over like that, I guess, to create somewhat of a swale this way. I'm not quite sure. But I'm wondering if you've studied how that impacts this boundary, since you're so close to the property line here with this direct abutter, and whether you've spoken to the abutter about having these parking spaces and drive access so close to their property.
No, we haven't had any contact yet. I think there's I'm happy to do that. Let me just leave it at that.
Okay, that would be great if you could report back.
Is the one that we've tried to lay out that's more, fairly compact, that doesn't use up the whole site. We don't have parking spread all over the back. But if there are issues like that, there's a fence along the edge there. And another question was whether, that would be something we could talk about too, the design.
Right. Yeah, it would just be helpful because here, you may not have a lot of nighttime activity, but there would be headlights facing that direct abutter. And then the cars obviously going in and out here right next to this. It just would be pretty good to, I think, for you also just to understand how this boundary will look in the end when you're all done. I do have some concerns about the aesthetic of that and want to make sure that everybody understands it, and including that abutter. And then I already mentioned this drainage structure. I'm wondering why I can't go underneath the parking lot here and retain these trees, which are, it's a nice stand of trees and rock along Central Ave.
Does the engineer want to talk about that, or shall we just leave that?
I think you can come back, if you don't mind, come back to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then On your drawings here, C 5.1, I think, let me get to it. It's 5.1, yeah, there's some signage here. And the plan, your narrative said that the signage would only be mounted on the building, but this is a monument sign and it's 6 feet
it's
tall
not,
by 8 foot.
For the time, you should mentally remove that.
Okay, so you'll amend that.
This drawn up as part of, this is standard when they're doing fencing, they show this type of signage. They do use these signs at other schools. At the present time, all I've discussed with the building commissioner is a name sign over the door, the Goddard School. He said that's what he would allow that. If we needed to have, if they decided they wanted a freestanding sign like this, I believe we have to go to the Board of Appeals and get a variance because it's in a residential district. So it's, and so it is noted here that it's according to what the town would allow, but you can't, the planning board can't even approve a sign, and this is not currently one that we're proposing. But if you have comments about freestanding signs, we'd be happy to hear them. I mean, it'd be good for everybody to know if the planning board has thoughts about that, but well, you know,
I can give you my personal thought. 6 foot by 8 foot would be inappropriate historically for that building. So that's whether the rest of the board members agree with me on that, but that's definitely my opinion. That's why I raised the issue for it. I think a small sign out front, you know, in the landscape would be fine. You know, if you went out and you wanted to do something out here, you know, that seems like it would be appropriate, but not that scale.
Okay.
And something more historic looking.
It's just really out of place.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and then I think in the discussion of the photometric plan, there was, maybe I should just go to that quickly. I think it was said that there would be no security lighting, but I have to imagine, given that it gets dark so early in the winter, that there would be some kind of building mount signage on this end of the building.
There will be. What I was saying that on our plan, we just did the parking for the entrance, the access way in the parking area. The architect will have security lighting on his plan set. For what you're asking for, there should be lighting in the back, emergency exits out front. Those aren't not shown in this plan, but I think Joe Walsh, the architect, well, I'll work with him. We'll provide that on another set of plans.
Could the planning board let us know though what their concerns are with security lighting so everybody knows? For example, in the previous application, you said you preferred motion sensor lighting.
Well, my sense was in that you just don't want lights on 24/7 in a residential area. So if you have them on motion, that means they're only going on if somebody's there. And if you have lights in this area, which just are for operational because you're open until 6, that's fine too. We just like to see what they are, because the idea, you know, for this is just that it's a commercial use in a residential district, and we want to make sure that we mitigate the impact as much as possible. So the lighting is one of the factors for that.
And generally speaking, it's like the lower poles, so it's and pointing downward.
So I think, I don't know if, did you have 10-foot poles or 12-foot poles here on these lights?
12-foot poles.
12? Yeah. Again, maybe you want to consider 10. We had a recent application where changing to 10 did not change the quantity of fixtures, and it didn't negatively impact the foot candle level. Okay. So it just, again, it kind of reduces the spread. I mean, the spread's contained, but you still see lights, right? Even though it shows it, like you're sitting across the street from a light, you can still see it, even though the foot candles are not dropping right on you.
Right.
Cheryl, what do you think of dark sky compliant here?
Right. Dark sky compliant also would, and if shielding, like here, it looks like it's showing no light spill onto the adjacent property, but you know, that fixture type, I'm not sure. Does that mean there's a cutoff in the back, or you know, something which is making nothing's, because those
are dark sky compliant. See the light coming straight down, it doesn't go to the side.
Yeah, but why wouldn't anything spill out the backside towards the abutter on that
Yeah.
without a shield?
Yeah, that could be shielded. We could shield 3 sides, one
Yeah.
side, 2 sides. So we'll show more detail of the shielding
Right,
locations on the plan.
okay. All right, so then we're going to go to public comment now. And Bill, you said that you sent me a text, I think, that you have a,
Greg Jemmy had his hand up, the only one that I've seen.
okay, so can you unmute him then?
Unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
So, a couple things. One, I want to thank you guys for being actually a lot more thoughtful about this than what we went through with the previous property. This is a big step to getting to a better place. So, I am the most direct abutter at 107. My front door looks right at the building. So the ones that you called out, I think are paramount for me. The landscaping on the noise side. The lighting is definitely, because I've actually had conversations with Peter Kelly prior where cars would have come into the Milton Club and their headlights are literally in my front door, wide front door, glass front door. So I'm assuming the lighting goes off after some time, like shuts down completely at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lighting's turned off after they close at 6.
Okay.
Within a reasonable time.
Yep. And I get it. It's winter. My kids have grown up here. Totally get it. The other one that didn't come up, which is a little concerning to me, is the traffic. I live on the corner. I know the traffic. I'm part of it going to work. There's a lot of kids that go bike ride, walk down Central to the middle school, my kids included. What does that look like, or what's the thought process behind the traffic coming in and out down Central? Central's is a pass-through, right? We all know this. It's a major pass-through in the morning, so there's already a good amount of traffic on it as it is. Getting from my house to, Elliott on some days could be 10 to 15 minutes in itself. So I didn't hear anyone really comment about the traffic on this street as they did about Blue Hills. Blue Hills is a very different traffic place, but it would be something to at least hear about the thought process behind some of this. Those are the ones that I think come to mind for now. Marion, I did drop you an email because I do really think as you and the owners, it's probably really, really wise to sort of have more of a conversation and interaction with the neighbors. This didn't happen in the last project. It created a lot of drama that I think could have been avoided if there was just more of a human interaction and it wasn't about an email or hoping you heard it or honestly not really caring what we thought. So I did drop you that note. You know where I live. So anytime you and the neighbors, we can social distance just to sort of know who's moving across the street from me. Because I've been I'd say one of the most impacted in this whole thing in 10, almost 11 years. So I'm just putting it out there.
Definitely. Now that it's warmer, maybe we can do something outdoors and still see each other.
Yep.
But we'll work it.
I'm COVID bound, so I'm home 24/7.
Okay.
So, Marion, to that point, I think if you could, I know that you had submitted in the application a traffic or a pickup and drop off schedule, but can you plan to run through that and how that works? How that would work, like how many are arriving from 7 to 8 and so forth. So we and the neighbors can have a better understanding of how that's distributed over time.
Yeah, I'd like to work with the applicant, and we did present. I did get tables of traffic flow from other Goddard schools in Massachusetts to help me understand what the traffic flow would be like. We'll use those, but I think together we can explain it. I'll probably do something in writing and then explain it at a meeting if you want us to do that at the next meeting.
I think that would be helpful to address Mr. Denny's concerns. Okay, I think Jenny Russell has her hand up.
I do. Thank you, Gerald, for recognizing me. Jenny Russell at 190 Central. So, Greg, hi. Thank you for your comments. We I am and my wife are directly across on Central Avenue, so equally impacted. And our concerns have basically already been mentioned, but I want to second quite a few of them. First, definitely the traffic is a concern. We use, obviously, Central all the time, and in the morning, the traffic can back up at least to Valley Road. So an additional 160 16 cars is not going to help that at all. Even if they say it's going to be staggered, I'm not entirely sure that that's going to be the case, particularly at that 6 to 8 a.m. So I would like to see a traffic study that was specific to the site and specific to the traffic pattern. It may be very hard to do with unnormal circumstances right now, but to get an idea of that flow. Secondly, I definitely agree with the keep the trees notion. One of the reasons we moved into the neighborhood was because of what it looks like, and the trees are an absolutely essential part of that. So to whatever extent the trees along Columbine, along Central, in the front can be maintained, that would ensure the integrity and the just the beauty of the residential neighborhood, which is really important. It also seems to me that for all the drainage studies that are done, if you cut down trees, the drainage has to change. So how do you have new drainage studies once you cut down trees? I don't know how that works, but it seems to me that that would have an effect. The third issue for us, obviously, is the lighting, which has also already been mentioned. Our house is directly on Central and directly across, so I can't imagine that these lights will not shine right in our indoor house. So I would like to see I guess a lighting or a glare. I don't even know what that is like, but there must be something that shows what the glare is when these lights are on. 10-foot high still seems a little high to me. The last thing actually that hasn't been mentioned but was talked about in terms of the outside condensers. So I don't know if that means that there's a constant noise that comes with those, sort of a hum. And if there's any equipment that is outside that faces either Central or Columbine that affects the neighbors from a noise perspective, I would appreciate that. And lastly, I would add that it seems like with the parking, that it really is a stop and go kind of place, which means that probably a lot of the cars are going to be running while they drop the kids off. And no one has mentioned, but a concern to me is just exhaust and air pollution, which comes from a lot of cars either backing up or just staying there for a short period of time. So I'd like to see that addressed. And I agree with the no signs. And I think that's all I have at this point. And just in terms of the letter from Marion, we received it last Friday, I believe. So it was sort of less than a week notice for this public meeting.
So you know, Jenny, this will be continued to our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight.
Right.
And these documents are on the town website, or will be. Bill can confirm that. So you can have access to those to review as well. While on that point on the lighting, there's a fixture right here and a fixture right here. And maybe you can look at just having one right here and moving that one in here so that it's not so close to the street. And then again, these that are very close to the street. And what I would say, Marion, is that the dealers who, the representatives for the lighting manufacturers will run these photometric plans, but they can also output that in a three-dimensional format, which can kind of simulate what the light would look like. We received that for Milton Marketplace. So maybe that's something that you can look into. So the spacing, so how close are these to the street, and then give an idea of what that light level looks like. You know, I would say, you know, these at 2.5 foot candles is not extraordinarily bright, but you know, it would be something that would be helpful for people to understand if they could run one of those. Okay, thank you, Jenny Russell. All right, is there anyone else who's tuned in or joined us who would like to speak? You can raise your hand feature at the bottom. Bill Atwood, I will unmute you. Or maybe, can you unmute yourself? There we go.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your time and effort on this. I basically just have two questions. The first one is, what is the timetable for this? I know that the Goddard School hasn't closed on the property yet. So can you explain how the process goes forward? I'm assuming they want approval on the site plan before they close on the property. What is the timetable?
Well, you're correct about that. I believe that's a condition in the purchase and sale agreement. I'm happy to have the applicant also respond, but it does depend on how long it takes to get a satisfactory site plan and to address the questions that have been raised. We're certainly going to make every effort to meet with neighbors and also gather additional information as has been requested tonight. And hopefully we're going to be scheduled tonight for our next meeting. But there isn't, well, can I direct that back to Sunny Verma? Is there a deadline? What timetable are you looking at?
Yes, Marion, so you're right. To address the question from Bill, we will be closing on the property after we have site plan approval from the town. As it currently stands, the current owner, Peter, he's told us he'll work with us, but within reason. He's not going to give us 1 year to work through this. His hope is he would like to, I think he's relocating to Florida to move there before the end of the year. The sooner we get the approval, we'll be able to close. So at this point, it's open-ended. The current agreement we have with Peter goes through August, I believe, this year. So a few more months, which we hope would be enough time to not only meet through with the neighbors' concerns, but also the feedback we've heard today and maybe in subsequent discussions. So that's where we are in terms of our plan.
Thank you very much for that. My second question concerns parcel 1 is the far leftern part of the property. That's the piece we're in litigation with Peter Kelly. It was an adverse possession case, et cetera. But there's another lot between parcel 1 and the fence at the back of the parking lot there. And I'm wondering basically where the irrigation is. It's labeled lot B in some of the drawings. I'm wondering if there's a plan for that parcel.
No, the A&R plan that is being recorded shows the parcel you're talking about. This is not the updated. Could we have the updated site plan?
I'll look at it, Marion.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes, that's it, I believe.
the A&R is on there.
No, it's not. That's still, I think that still shows.
Right.
So in that drawing where it says lot B.
Okay,
That's the same.
there you go. Okay, so there, it says, it's called Lot A.
Yeah. So this is the new one.
So this is dividing.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay.
You see
At
that
least for the site plan purposes, the whole site is Lot A.
Right.
And then this parcel 1 is the non-buildable 7,200 square foot
Right.
other parcel on the A&R. We are not, the applicants are not purchasing that.
No, I understand that. But you see that bit of land right between parcel 1 and the back of the parking lot?
Yeah.
That region there?
That's all part of the site.
If that has a name, what is the plan for that piece?
Well, there's some drainage structures on the lower part of that, closer to Columbine Road.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the drainage plan, let's go back to the drainage plan and I'll show you. So it is an active part of the site because we're using part of it. There it is. See that? There's a drainage structure on there. That's only in the lower part, not in the upper part. Otherwise, it's going to be left in its current condition, I believe.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, that's what we're proposing. From the existing wall back, we're not going to disturb it other than the parking lot. So is it about a 50-foot buffer between the back of our fence to the edge of disturb of the abutting property, which would be lot 1, parcel 1. Where drainage structure is on the lower side, where the wall is down in the lawn area, where there are no trees there now. It's actually a lawn area. The grade will pick up a little bit there for the drainage, probably I think 3 feet to 4 feet. But we'll gradually, it'll still be a lawn, open lawn area, kind of like it is now. So we're not proposing any tree cutting from the fence back to the disturbed area right now.
Okay, thank you very much. The drainage structure, is that an above ground structure or below ground or both?
Subsurface.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Atwood?
No, thank you very much. Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has questions or comments for us on this application?
No.
I guess I had a question. This is Denny. I might have missed this, but are you asking for any variances, Marianne?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then last call for any other comments, raising hands.
I have a comment, Cheryl.
Yes.
Just on the time frame of how to move forward, I feel like there's an awful lot of work to be done on this project, and I don't, in between the department heads and getting the architectural plans and the new, updating the photometric with the lighting.
And the historical commission.
Historical commission consultation, the detail on the equipment on top of the building, trees. I mean, there's a lot to be accomplished. I don't know if putting it back on the agenda in 2 weeks is going to give them enough time to make that, an effective use of time. I would suggest that we wait until the following meeting, July 9th. And if Marion has complete, we still need to update the application with the appropriate number of students and what have you. If she wants to submit more information to us between now and then, that would be fine. But I don't feel like we're going to have enough progress done between now and July 25th to have a
June 25th.
conversation.
Yeah. Well, point taken, and that we would like the information a week in advance of meeting. So that would only give you 1 week. Pardon me. Marion, what is your thought about that?
Well, I think that we need enough time to get everything together. If there are any comments from the engineer or the architect or the applicant, that's fine, but it sounds to me like we would need that much time. So I know I could do a meeting on July 9th, if that's when you want to schedule it. As far as the historical commission goes, I will ask them for a meeting. They have not met for several months, but I think if there's a reason, they'd be willing to set up a meeting, and we'll get one before the next meeting. I'll do my best.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Even on some other applications, even if they haven't met as a whole group, Steve O'Donnell has been willing to just provide some feedback, or other members of the commission have been. I think it would just be helpful.
Yes, and I've done that, and I will do that if they can't meet together.
Okay. Then I will take a motion to continue this to the July 9th meeting at 7:15. No, 7:05, but we probably don't have anything else at the moment on that agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Denny Swenson?
Yes.
April Anderson?
Yes.
Kathleen O'Donnell?
Yes.
Rich Beeler?
Yes.
And Cheryl Tagayas, yes. All right, thank you, Marion.
Thank you very much.
And the neighbors, thank you for participating. Okay, I'm going to stop this screen share for the moment. All right, Ned, I'm going to unmute you. Before we move on to next agenda items, Ned asked to speak for a moment. So Ned, go ahead.
Thank you. Cheryl, rumor has it that this might be Bill Clark's last meeting as a town planner. And I just want to take the time to recognize his long and valuable service to the town. I think he's been an extraordinary and valuable resource. I've appreciated all of his efforts on behalf of the town. He has the town's best interests at heart, and I want to wish him well as he heads out the door in retirement.
Thank you, Ned. And I'm going to just unmute all. So anybody else who might want to have a comment, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, as Rich, I echo that. I did not know. Maybe I didn't realize today was so.
Well, until today, I thought that 2 weeks from now would be the last meeting that Bill would be with us. But then I learned today that it was actually tonight. And so I echo everything that Ned said. I've, as chair the last 2 years, I've worked very closely with Bill and have appreciated all of his work to help me prepare for these meetings and advising about what we need to do. And he's, I'm sure he's going to miss all of us in his.
Or not.
Get your nights back.
I know, find something else to do on Thursday nights. I can't even imagine what that might be.
And now he's good.
Tell us when you think about it.
And when he sees a text or a call coming in from me, he's going to wonder what in the world I'm doing. All right. So thank you, Ned, for that. So we're going to then move on to
Thank you, Ned.
Yeah.
Welcome.
our new business item of discussion of de minimis change at Wolcott Woods development. And that, I believe Jack Dolly is with us. And so, Jack, Bill, are you going to share your screen with slides related to that?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't see Jack anymore.
I did. John
I did
Dolly?
see him.
I am here.
Oh, wait a minute. There he is. All right.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not going to make a big presentation. The materials, have been provided. We believe that they are a de minimis change, that we're reacting to the architecture that the board ratified, architectural change and the team member and the approach that we're going to take to the architecture as we start to layer that in and fine tune, each building for each site. We discover learnings that we can make improvements. So we're twisting and turning in the locations where we're starting, immediately behind the Devon's house, and immediately, and then we saw an opportunity behind the Manor House that just presented itself as a no-brainer. Peter Crabtree did a nice job of outlining the whys and wherefores and the plans supporting it, and I would ask for the board's support for a minor modification to the special permit in those two instances.
Well, do you have it? Otherwise, I can call it up. Just for the
I do.
public's purpose, I'd like to have it on the screen, Jack.
Yep.
While Bill's calling that up, I will say that we received an email from the Historical Commission expressing their support for these changes.
While he's pulling it out, I did send the package that you all have to the neighborhood list that we have been working with for quite some time. I did not get any comments, positive or negative. I got silence.
Well, I think sometimes silence is an indication that people don't have any concerns. It's not always the case, but it's more often the case than not. Bill, we're still seeing your list of files and not the actual file. Do you have the presentation one though, Bill? The renderings? I think it's.
Yeah, that one's more powerful.
Right. It's a different file name.
I want to come up, that's all. You want?
I've got it, Bill. End your screen share and give it back to me. Everybody have it?
Yes.
All right. So you want to just point this out, Jack? Here, this is the maybe the plan.
Yeah,
I'll pull
sure.
the plan up here.
This first one is. Okay.
Well, I just to orient people in plan first, right? Because that
right.
this
right.
Okay.
This area is the area immediately behind the manor house. The entry drive comes up past the Devon's house, and as the cursor is moving right, and then it hits the T, if you will, and then begins to climb into the site over to the Walcott area. So below that intersection and above the manor house, which is at the bottom of that colored image, you can just see the piece of it there. Were 2 units were placed as this left-hand side is as approved, and they just punched in off of the main road rather uncreatively, mind you, and with a common driveway to access the 2 areas. Union Studios, Peter and I started looking at this with their new architecture and saw an opportunity to create a focal point in the land plan at that intersection as you are either exiting the community, coming down from Walcott, or the other way, to create a green or an amenity feature to the neighborhood, and then cluster the 2 homes more in a more elegant way around that open space area. One of the units will remain accessed off of the main road. The other one will be accessed off of the driveway that runs down to the manor house. That's Unit A. And in that condition, that Unit A, believe it or not, will be a garage under unit design, which will be the only garage under unit design. And that is a difference. You can see that there. Thank you. And the other building will be an at-grade entry. And it just felt like this sort of rearrangement and focusing really hard on the architecture and the intersection gave us an opportunity to improve the plan in a significant way. So that's that little change in that area. If we can go to the next slide, thank you. Again, in the top half of this is what was approved. Units 1 and 2 behind the Devon's house, accessed via a common driveway. As you look down that common driveway, you saw sort of the end elevation of Unit 2, which isn't horrible, but in looking at it in a slightly different way, the team came up with sort of a twisting and turning of the 2 buildings that did a couple of things. It took Unit 2, somewhat out of visual play, more so than the first time, and allowed the focus on the architectural element of the carriage like garage element of those 2 units. It also improved the front yard. You can see in the upper drawing sort of this pinched, behind unit 2 garage, and then the front entry of Unit 1, while in some respects is quite private, it's looking at the back end of Unit 2, and by twisting and reconfiguring them, we create what has been called sort of a little home yard in between the 2 units, where the walkways and a sense of place where you can interact with your neighbor as you come and go and say hi, how you doing, how are things going, in a much more sort of social and collaborative way. So that in brief, it's a long night. You guys have been at it a long time, is what we're asking for your consideration of. We're not changing, the number of bedrooms. The architecture follows what you saw back in February, and we think that the special permit does allow for non-substantial changes, I believe is the wording in it. And we don't believe this is a substantial change.
Okay, well, I think these are wonderful changes, and we'll make for all the reasons that you've said, they're wonderful changes. So I would support the de minimis change for these. Other members?
I feel the same way. I think this is terrific. And Jack, I just want to say thank you. I think you've done a really good job of keeping the neighbors informed and giving them plenty of time to review your materials and be prepared for the meetings. And I accept the fact that nobody's gotten in touch with you, and we'll see if anybody's on this call, but I haven't heard any complaints. And I think you've done a nice job of that throughout the process since your original approval. So thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen?
I wanted to third that. I love the, as a person who lives in a neighborhood facing a little tiny park like this, I can't tell you how many people are in that park every day. So I like to see this amenity added. I think it's a great idea. And I like the twist on the other two to create some sort of better facing design. So I thank you very much for the changes.
Denny?
I agree. So what is that for? Just a quick question. I think they are improvements all the way around. They all make a lot of sense to me. Would the square footage of the units change?
No. We have a maximum, Denny, and these are, we're not looking for more square footage. If anything, we're probably, ratcheting it down a little bit, but it will not.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
It will comport with, we're trying to, sort of micro design as opposed to macro design. When we go through a site plan approval process, we're trying to really micro design each little neighborhood as we start placing the units in it. And you'll see Peter and I come back again. We're taking a good hard look at the Walcott cluster as we speak, and just making sure we do the best we can and integrate. We put a lot of effort in the first time, but I think as we go through this and we really sort of focus the microscope down into each little cluster, we see opportunities and learnings that we think, frankly, I've said this a couple of times. This is one of the best, nicest, most important pieces of ground that I've worked on in 35 years in the business, and it really requires extraordinary care and at every step of the way, and that's we're trying to walk the walk in that respect.
Well, it's always nice to see improvements, so thank you for bringing them to us. I look forward to seeing more. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on that because I want public to be aware that the path of least resistance for an applicant is to just build what you got approved. So the fact that Jack is spending that extra time and energy to keep coming back for all these changes isn't because he's trying to shortcut a system. It really only makes sense if you really genuinely are trying to improve the site. So I really applaud it. I thank you. And I think you're making our job easy by doing all the homework for us in advance.
Thank you, April. Rich, do you have any
No,
comments?
I agree with every comment that was just made. I think it looks great.
All right, so I'll just make one last.
Yeah, and April, I haven't been able to come to a meeting in Milton, so I miss you guys.
You get to see what we all look like in our homes here, right? Jack, glad to see that you're able to mobilize again and work in this COVID-19 era. So by the site recently, it looked good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
We're back at it. I would tell you that we've had a fair amount of very strong interest in what are we bringing to market and when are we bringing it to market in the last, I would say, 2 weeks. We're trying to get the electrical conduit in as we speak so we can pave. We have hydroseeded it to get some green grass growing. Thankfully, we got some, some moisture and a little less heat in the last 10 days. We're taking a hard look at whether or not it is wise to plant bushes right now or not. The last thing I really want to do is go spend, $50,000 on plantings, and I can't water them sufficiently, and then they turn orange. So we may phase that in as we feel it's wise to do. But the idea is to get the place looking sharp. And if you can advance this, it will allow me to advance getting some buildings in the ground in July, which was our hope. That is the outcome of this conversation tonight, as opposed to this getting punted into July, which then translates into August.
Thank you, Jack. Is there anybody who's participating that would like to address the board on this matter? You can raise your hand at the bottom of your screen. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Bill, are you seeing anyone wave?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. All right. Then I will entertain a motion to approve these as de minimis changes for the Wolcott Woods special permit.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, roll call vote. April Anderson.
Yes.
Kathleen O'Donnell.
Yes.
Denny Swenson.
Yes.
Rich Beeler.
Yes.
Cheryl Tagayas, yes. Thank you, Jack, and thanks for your patience tonight in waiting to get to this on our agenda.
Thanks for your consideration and all of the hard work. And I would echo what Ned said about Bill. As many of you know, I spend 2 to 3 nights a week in front of planning boards in different towns, and Bill has run a good planning shop. He's responsive. He's tough when it's appropriate. He's fair when it's appropriate. I think the town was served well by his tenure, and I also believe the town misses his professionalism going forward. So it was nice working with you, Bill.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay, I'm going to stop this share. All right, we have next on our agenda under old business, the Pulte Homes Affordable Housing Units discussion, next steps and timelines. I'm going to ask Bill to give us an overview and Kathleen to chime in when he's done.
I just had Mark up there and he just hung up.
Oh,
There he's there.
I'm here, Bill.
There he is. All right, he turned his video
there he
on.
is.
That's
Yeah.
okay. And I'm going to unmute. No, and Julie's there too.
I've been here for 3 hours. It's been a meeting. You all have done a very nice job. I see Julie just popped in the last
This is
5
my
or 10 minutes, so I
second.
missed the memo.
This is my second 3-hour meeting this week. I had to sit in another town and listen to a lot of discussion about putting restaurant tables on the sidewalk while I was waiting for one small thing.
Julie has herself muted, so I can't unmute her.
All right, Julie, you'll have to unmute yourself when you're ready.
All right. Pulte is at house number 10 for certificate of occupancy. They expect to get number 11 first week in July. When they get the number 11, that would be the 50% that is in the special permit. The special permit does allow for changes to be done by the planning board. Pulte has taken and bought a house on Church Street in East Milton. They've retrofitted the house. The house has been toured by the planning board. It's been toured by the Affordable Housing Trust and the planning department. And we have all agreed that the house has come out very nice. I know that Julie Kramer and Tom Callahan had a discussion with DHCD today. I know that Pulte has taken and filed with the selectmen their local action units application so that they can get, they can submit that to DHCD in order to start the process to put together the marketing plan and publish the marketing plan. Once the marketing plan is out there for X amount of time, they can start accepting applications. And when they start accepting the applications, they'll review those. Eventually, what it does is it leads to a housing lottery. This is a fairly lengthy process. And because it is a lengthy process, because the houses are lining up to go, one on July 1st, one the middle of July, one the end of July, again the 1st of August, and it'll be about every 2 to 3 weeks from that point. What Pulte is asking is that they be allowed a 3-month window that they can go through the monitoring and go through the marketing plan and go through the vetting of the people who will be responding to the marketing plan. So that the housing lottery will most likely happen September. Mark, you can take it from there.
Yeah, Bill, I think you did a great job summarizing it. As part of Milton Woods, we have an obligation to provide the town 2 affordable units to be approved on DHCD's SHI. And we have been diligently trying to comply with that requirement, and we're here tonight. We're very close, but we're not quite there yet. So, we did purchase the home. We have improved it substantially. I believe everybody is in agreement that the home is ready now to be marketed and to be affordable units. But there's some paperwork left that has to occur, and that takes time. And it's coordination with the Milton Housing Authority members, and it's coordination with the planning board and the planning board members, coordination with the Board of Selectmen, coordination with DHCD. We have a lottery agent, Maureen O'Hagan from MCO, that we've engaged to help us through this process. And that all just takes time. And the deadline in our special permit, as Bill mentioned, is coming up. And basically, it's in the middle to end of July when I'm supposed to be done with the homes, and the homes need to be offered for sale. And the home is done, and all my paperwork is in, but it's in the review period, and I can't market my homes for sale until everybody approves it. DHCD is with COVID, they're not in the office. I don't know, how fast they're moving. There's a lot of details that we all have to work out, and I don't want to rush through them, although we'll go as fast as, we all can. And so we're just, we have a lot of homes sold. We have a lot of buyers making plans to move in. And I'm here tonight asking for the board's consent for just a minor extension to the deadline, just so that, I have assurances that that Milton Woods can continue to move forward while, we wrap up the affordable units in a diligent fashion and in a proper manner.
Bill, you want to, sorry, Mark, Bill have his hand up?
Great. I do know that Town Council has all of the documents for the affordable units. I know that Kevin and his partners are going through working with Pulte's lawyer, Bob Lavoie, and they have already gone through the local action units application. They don't have any problems with it. They've been going through the documents, the deed writers and stuff. They have no problem to this time. Pulte's been extremely responsive to Town Council, and they're doing good. And I see that Julie just unmuted herself and she's back. So she may have a comment that I don't know about.
Julie, go ahead.
Sure. The comment is simple. what he's asking for, what Pulte is asking for, is an extension till October 31st. So what it essentially does is it allows them to bring, to sell, occupy, get their C of Os for 70% of the units, plus or minus. The permit was for 50% before, the units were could be marketed. So we're not talking about the affordable units being sold. We're not talking about the affordable units being occupied. It's a very simple hurdle to get over. We had a discussion with DHC today. We want to make sure that they're aware of the need to expedite their review. They told us, if the documents were in tomorrow, it would probably be 2 to 3 weeks for them to respond. So it isn't, I'm not, I have the luxury of only being keyed into this one specific item on the permit. I'm not a voting member of your board, but I think what they're asking for is a little bit more than I can throw my support behind. I don't want to keep people from moving in. We're not asking him to stop working on the homes. What we're asking them to do is catch up a little bit, right? Because you've owned this home for a long time. You've made great progress in this last month or two, but we've been available to you when you've called. We've had calls with DHCD. We've expedited our input and our work to get you to the right spot. We're excited about putting these units up for sale. We're excited about what this means for the town. And so I feel like October 31st is a little, it's a little too far out for me.
So what would you propose instead?
Well, I would propose, as Bill mentioned, they'll be at 52% at the end of July, right? And every 2 weeks or so, they're expecting another house to be ready. So at most, I would like to see the end of August, because I do feel in those 2 months, in July and August, they could meet their obligation.
So you think that DHCD, I looked at the units and with you guys on Friday, and I think they're great. I'm just thinking about the process of getting to the rest of the board members and to the members of the public, the special permit that was issued by this board only says that the units have to be offered for sale. So they have to be marketed. They don't have to be actually sold to an affordable buyer inside the time period.
Correct. That's what I said. They don't have to be occupied. They just have to be marketed.
So I agree with you that October 31st seems a little far, because it seems like you would be, once the LAU application gets approved by DHCD and you do your lottery, as far as I'm concerned, and you got certificates of occupancy for the units, then I'm thinking that you've qualified you've met the obligations of the language of the special permit, which says that they have to be offered for sale.
So where does the select board's approval fit in here?
They have to sign off on the application for the local initiative unit. So
before it goes to DHCD?
Well, see, here's the thing. Normally, affordable units, as we know, can be done by 40B, which we've heard about, or you can do a local action unit. So it's a separate process. The town says, we want these units, so you don't have to do mass housing and get a site eligibility letter and get a special permit, get a comprehensive permit from the ZBA. You don't have to do any of that, because you get the town to sign off and say, we want these 2 units. So it's a separate approval process, and it gets the units on the SHI.
But do we need the select board to sign off on it before it gets submitted to DHCD?
Yeah, they have to sign the application.
Right, okay. So
I-
right now, we're in
I
this,
asked-
go ahead,
I
Bill.
asked them to sign that last night, and they wouldn't sign it because Julie wasn't ready to sign it. When Julie's ready to sign, then they'll sign.
What I said was, I'm having a call with DHCD today, which was today. So I wasn't ready to sign off on it
Okay.
last
Yeah,
night.
and there was, in Julie's defense, there was a discussion about the pricing, and we wanted them to fix the pricing on the units, because when the application was first drafted, they were on sale for the same price, and one unit is a lot bigger than the other one. And so we wanted, Tom, Julie, and I wanted them to go back and say, no, offer the unit one for a lower price, have them have a lower condo fee, to do the division of the percentage interest differently. And so that got rounded up today. So, that's part of the application, is that the condominium documents and the master deed and all that stuff go in with the application. So we did have that sort of last minute kind of adjustment on the pricing, which Mark agreed to do, which was great. And then I had sent in a couple of comments about the condominium documents, but that's something that we can fix later on. I just, some little minor details. So, yeah.
So would all of you think that if we had an extension until, let's say, September 1, is that give adequate time for these to get approved by Select Board and DHCD? So I'm trying to look for something, sort of a compromise in between what the special permit, what they're running up against in July versus the end of October.
The only thing I think folks understand is that they're not, they're now looking for a date certain. So it's not a percentage of units, right? What they're asking for is a date by which they have to have the units marketed. And I feel that an August 31st to September 1st date, they could satisfy their obligation for having the units marketed for sale.
So I guess I lost you on that. So,
Sure. So the permit says 50%.
Right.
And what they're now asking for is a date.
No. Well, I don't think they're technically asking for a date. I mean, because we can't change. You don't have a date now. What we
I know.
is we would say that we would allow them to exceed the 50% requirement.
By how
to
much?
a certain amount, right?
To a certain percentage. So,
So, all right. So by the end of August, Mark, what percentage would you be at, knowing what you know today?
As Bill said, we're at 10 today. We have 2 in July and 2 in August, so that would be 14. So 14 divided by 23 would be 0.608. So 61, we would be under 61%.
So we said that we would, that until such time when 65% of the market rate units have been sold. That gets you to August, or gets you through August.
Through August. That would work for us. I have every expectation of not, the reason of just picking October 31st was to just allow enough time, even though I'm not expecting to take all of the time, but just allow enough time so that I didn't have to keep coming back in case something went wrong. But I think the 60% would work fine for us.
You don't want to have an empty house in October.
No.
Yeah.
And I want to bring this through and finish this. And we have a lot of momentum right now. And, I want to finish the documents and adjust them the way we discussed today, submit them back to the Board of Selectmen, get them to sign off, get the package to DHCD in the next, couple of weeks. Hopefully, I don't know how the Board of Selectmen will sign off.
Well, hopefully they'll sign it at their next meeting, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was told.
So I know that we're going to do everything that we can do. And, if for some unforeseen event happens between now and the next deadline, I'll I'll be here in front of you telling you everything I've done and how I did everything I could in my power, and we'd have another conversation. But I don't think that will happen. I think the 65% is more than fair, and I appreciate Julie's support and taking the time out to walk the house with us a number of times. And Kathleen, you were at the house as well, and your time and and the comments that you provided. So I think this is going well, and I appreciate that we're working together to finish these houses and complete the obligation. So I would be okay with 65%, and I think that would be great.
So did I?
With you, Julie?
Yeah. I mean, I prefer a percentage versus a date.
Right. Okay, April or Denny?
I'm perfectly fine with the solution.
Oh, good. Thank you for everyone, all your hard work. It's a lot of lifting going on, so thank you.
And Rich?
Yep. Nope. I'm good.
Okay, then if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to accept. How do we need to phrase it, Kathleen?
So let's see. So we would move to acknowledge the progress that the applicant has made towards providing 2 affordable units off-site, and we recognize that the existing permit says that the units have to be offered for sale no later than the time when 50% of the interest of the market rate units have been sold. We understand that they can't be offered for sale until they're approved by DHCD, and there's a lottery. And so in recognition of the time process to put them out for offering for sale to an affordable buyer, we would recognize that we would allow certificates of occupancy to be issued for 65% of the market rate units.
I'll second that. But I won't be able to repeat it.
Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. Kathleen?
Yes.
April Anderson?
Yes.
Denny Swenson?
Yes.
Rich Beeler?
Yes.
And Cheryl Tagayas, yes. Thank you, everyone, for your work on this.
Yeah.
And for staying on until this hour. For us
Well,
to work our way through the agenda.
I also would just like to take a moment to thank Bill for all of his time, and he was extremely valuable to us for many, many meetings and many, many years as we worked our way through the process. And thank you for everything you did for us, and I wish the best to you, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Have a good one.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, we had a couple other things, and I know the hour's late, and we won't pick up everything now. I have a couple of suggestions. On the webinar, I think I had sent in an email that I tentatively have scheduled that with Mike Lynch, Milton Access TV, for June 23rd. Does that work for members? April, Denny, Kathleen, Rich.
It doesn't work for me, but I don't think I need to participate. Are you going to give your presentation?
Well, we've had some discussion also with the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and I see Katie's here, and I'll ask her if she wants to speak in a moment, about having a panel, and the panel could include someone from the Master Plan Implementation Committee. Members of that committee are all interested in at least making a comment or a statement of support, whether they're part of presenting it or not. And then Kathleen, I think, is interested in participating on the panel. So, well, I thought you were. That's the discussion now is just a little bit, do we all want to do it? Do we want a couple of us to do it? So that's, and then setting the date. And then I thought if a number of us want to do it, we should have a meeting dedicated just to that, preparing for that webinar, probably next week.
What time would it be on the 23rd?
I think we had 6 o'clock. Is that right, Mike Lynch? Are you still with us?
Yeah, I think it was 6 o'clock.
I think so.
So
We talked. Go ahead.
I'm sorry I can't participate, but like April, I think you should go ahead with it. I'll be on a long drive that day for over 5 hours, so I would probably not be much use. So.
All right. And how about you, Rich?
Oh, are you allowed to do that?
I know.
No, you don't. I mean, this sounds like we're not having a meeting, right? So I wouldn't.
No, it's just if people want to participate in the explanation, the overview of the article, and why we think it's something that town meeting should support.
Yeah, I mean, I defer to you if you want me to do any part of it. I'd be more than happy to, but I don't. I mean, you're probably way better. Others are way better versed than I.
Well, I think having a cross section of us is beneficial, and having more than one speaker is beneficial.
I'm fine with that.
So, Katie, would you like to say anything since you've joined us? I'll unmute you, or you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Cheryl, for calling me out that I was even here. I thought you were going to be presenting the webinar. So at the last master plan implementation committee, we talked about our members logging into the meeting tonight so we could hear the presentation and see the slides. I've seen some of them at your prior meeting. That's the only reason I'm here. So no, I think Dick Burke is our representative for the webinar, and Tabor and Liz and I are going to try to attend it as well, but not as speaking participants, just there to show some support and to potentially answer questions. But I think Dick will be our spokesman.
Okay. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
And sorry, I think we had an overly ambitious agenda for tonight, kind of hoping we would be able to get to that. But it looks like we're not. So thanks for tuning in, Katie. And if we do schedule a meeting for next week to run through it, I'll let you and the rest of the master plan implementation committee know about that. Okay. All right. So let's see. We have our public hearing on the zoning articles in 2 weeks on June 25th. So we did receive a few comments from Kevin Freitag today. The schedule for getting the warrant to press, and maybe Katie has a little bit more information on this. I know that I was asked by the warrant committee to participate in a meeting with them, I think it was on Monday, to give them an overview of the changes in the article, which I did. They asked if we anticipated further changes. I said, well, we had the council looking at the article as well as public hearings coming up. So they were interested in getting any revisions as quickly as we could. So we could take up those changes. If we do schedule a meeting for next week, we could take up at least Kevin's changes and get those to the warrant committee and probably have that incorporated into their recommendation before it would go to press. I don't know if the same would happen for further changes after the hearing on the 25th. That might have to come in a green sheet.
I didn't have any, his changes weren't substantial.
They're minor, yeah.
They were pretty minor, and it was mostly just kind of like a couple of grammar things and stuff. So I didn't have any problem with them at all.
Has everybody had a chance to review them?
I did. No problems.
Yeah.
Okay, so then would anyone?
I make a motion to accept the revisions that council made and submit to the warrant committee.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we'll need a roll call vote. Kathleen O'Donnell?
Yes.
April Anderson?
Yes.
Denny Swenson?
Yes.
Rich Beeler? Can you unmute yourself, Rich?
Yes. No, I was losing connection. Sorry.
No problem. And Cheryl Tagayas, yes. All right. Next meeting dates, June 25th, July 9th, July 23rd. We have town meeting on Monday, the 15th, And we have special town meeting July 28th. Approval of minutes, if you all are agreeable, we'll defer that. And that leaves us our reorg. So it's been my pleasure being the chair and having chaired now my last meeting and my first meeting of my new term, my new 3-year term. So
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations on a hard-fought battle.
Well, anyway, so thanks for allowing me or giving me the pleasure and honor of being the chair. But at this point now, I will take a motion for a new person to fill this seat.
I would like to make a motion for April Anderson to take over as chair of the planning board, as the cap to her illustrious career on this planning board.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Oh, Cheryl second.
Well, thank you.
Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
So she's going to do Calvin Coolidge?
All right. So all those in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. Kathleen O'Donnell.
Yes.
April Anderson.
Yes.
Denny Swenson.
Yes.
Rich Beeler.
Yes.
And Cheryl Tagayas, yes. All right, one last thing before our motion to adjourn. I know others have said it earlier.
We have to do treasurer, don't
we? We have to do secretary, you're right. I'm sorry about that. Denny, would you like to continue as secretary?
I would be honored.
All right, so would someone like to make that nomination?
I would nominate Denny as secretary of the planning board.
Second.
Thank you, Kathleen. I accept that nomination.
All right, so April seconded it and Denny has accepted it. So we'll do roll call vote. Kathleen O'Donnell.
Yes.
April Anderson.
Yes.
Denny Swenson.
Yes.
Rich Beeler.
Yes.
Cheryl Tagayas. Yes. Okay, thank you, April, for reminding me about that. I just again wanted to say thank you to Bill and wish Bill well in his next endeavors in life. And again, state our appreciation for all of his efforts on behalf of the town.
Thank you very much.
Here.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, then I will, unless I've missed something, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
So moved and second, thirded.
Kathleen O'Donnell.
yes.
April Anderson.
Yes.
Denny Swenson.
Yes.
Rich Beeler.
Yes.
And Cheryl Tagayas. Yes. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Night.
Night.
Night.